you guys all doing out there? Hope you're well. Okay, we're going to have people trickling. We're a few minutes late. I'm sorry, that's both on me and Shinobi, but pretty much on me. It's always on me. I'm always fashionably late. It's something that I pride myself upon, it seems. Be proud of my fashionable late tendencies. Tom Rue, brother, Howard, I don't think you guys are in the room at the moment. Or if you are, there's a glitch. Sounds like an infection. Tom Rue, that's hilarious. Gotta love Tom Rue. Oh, that's a beautiful thing. So here we are, sort of waiting for people to arrive. We're a bit late, so it seems like let me check my YouTube and make sure that everything is on track the way it needs to be. Make sure there's no issues. Yeah, I did notice an issue with StreamYard before. A disappointing issue, I must admit. Indeed. So let's jump on board with this volume muted and see if everything is on track here. It seems like we're working. Big love, dear brother Tom Rue. Namaste. How are you doing? And Howard and the other people that have been trickling into the room. We've just also really arrived in the last sort of minute or so. So, Gaz, how you doing, brother? I hope you're good, man. Yeah, Dorje Shugden. Okay, I'm going to admit, right? I do think that the Dalai Lama needs to have a new one ripped. And I'm here, yours truly, in an attempt to assist to rip the Dalai Lama a new one because the old one doesn't fit. Or shall we say the old one's become a little bit clogged up. There's too much crusty bits in the old one. Those crusty bits have prevented the old one from operating, so he needs a new one ripped. That's the saying goes. And that's for the Dalai Lama. And as for Dorje Shugden, we're going to talk about superstition here, right? We're going to have a nice little chat. Bom Shiva. Any of you that are Dalai Lama worshippers, lovers, whatever, I'm sorry. I'm going to be very upfront. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to say it as I see it. I'm going to express thoughts that I don't often say openly. It started with a little conversation. Just a little bit of a conversation. You see, there's this guy who portrays himself as a shaman. And I thought, well, let's go and check this guy out. And so I went to go and take a look at this guy and see just exactly who is this guy and what's his story. What's his seen? What's his I believe he's written some books, and you know how it is. These people, they come and they write books about shamanism, and they read books about shamanism, and after reading all the books that all the other so-called shaman have written, because as we know, the first thing that one does when one's a shaman is one writes a book about shamanism, right? And then starts training and teaching other people to become shaman because that's the done thing, is it not? Because shamanism's like, it's just a thing that everybody does, right? And so there's a lot of this new age shamanism out there, which is particularly toxic in my opinion. I've got a few of those new age shaman books on my shelf, and the truth is I've never gotten past 5 or 6 or 7. I don't even think I've read as many as 10, maybe 10 pages of a book before I'm searching for the nearest bucket. I'm looking for a bucket. I'm like, no, I cannot digest what I just read. I need a bucket to put it into because it's not going in that way. There's no way I'm letting this run through my system. And there's all these so-called shamanic initiations with incense and bells and whistles and cute little incantations and chants and certificates. There we go, boy. Now you're a shaman. And it's a toxic curse on our psyche, on our where we're at now. And it doesn't just apply to shamanism. I'm sorry to say we've got to uncover what's going on in this so-called psychic spiritual development community, and just exactly how closely is spirituality aligned with politics. The Vatican, the Dalai Lama, this Dalai Lama cult, as I call it what it is. It's a Dalai Lama cult. And with us, we have General Shinobi. As you all should know, Shinobi is funky, cool, hip, and lots of fun. And he's a dad, and he does a lot of research into words, logos, images, synchromysticism, the ideas behind words and symbols and how they sort of fit in together is a big part of his inspiration. He's learning organically, using his natural wisdom and imagination to explore. He's not getting lost in books, learning from other people who knew the truth and wrote the truth down in the books, and now we've memorized the truth and now we are their disciples. He's not like that. Welcome, dear brother. It's an honor to have you on the show as always, and tell the new people that haven't heard about you that will come and see the show, hopefully, because all of you are going to be liking, subscribing, and sharing.
Yeah, and commenting as well. If leaving any questions or whatever on the YouTube, I think that helps too, to with the algorithm. But yeah, what's up, people? My name's Toby. I go by General Shinobi, and yeah, as Franklin says, what I try to do is just try to find the essence of things, the common thread between all things, because everything is connected at its essence. And to find the truth, I've I had to, over the years, there's so much misinformation out there, there's so much division as well, to kind of split our minds, to split our psyche, so we're disorientated. So what I've tried to do is find the essence, the common thread, how symbology, etymology, mythology affects psychology, kind of using philosophy, kind of using little bits of them all and not taking anything as the truth. Just see where it leads. And it's more of like a spiral. It's more of like a journey, and you come back to things that you thought you once knew, but then you have a more kind of, you can view it from a different perspective. Like the further along your learning, when you kind of learn a little bit more, you can go back to something that you thought you knew and seeing it with a different perspective. Like me personally, myself, I do that all the time. And it's just like it's an expansion. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. I use mainly etymology, just like playing around with words and stuff, and more following how they sound rather than the kind of definition of what that word is. If you kind of split the word, change the vowels around, find out what that word means in another language, find out its origins. I'm more interested in the flow of things rather than trying to contain it and be like, this is what it is. It's more of like, well, it could be this, or this, multiple perspectives. And I try to come at things with a fresh angle as well. And yeah, fortunately, I'm not great at reading. I do read non-fiction books, but I'm not really a sort of factual book person, which is quite good because I've not really got my information from books. It's more of conversations, speaking, and own personal research. So yeah, looking forward to this conversation today with Franklin about the Dalai Lama. He's a CIA asset as well, isn't he, right? Your mic's muted, man.
Sorry, I've got charcoal all over my hands. Do give me a minute while you crank on.
That's
dropped a
fine.
charcoal and it shattered on the floor and it's hot. So I've been picking it up with hot hands because the pliers are too slow. It'll be
Cool.
a
No,
moment.
no problem, man. You go for it. Cool. Squirrel Sniper subbed, liked, and about to share. Awesome. Squirrel, if you feel like checking out my YouTube channel, it's Systematic Zoo. It's a little bit confusing having lots of different names. Systematic Zoo is the name for my book I'm trying to write, which has taken a long time because I'm not a natural writer. I come up with loads of concepts, characters, stuff like that, but sometimes it's a bit much. I might be working with Indie Sage though to try and get some momentum, try and get the ball rolling. But yeah, my book's called Systematic Zoo. It's basically about this Earth, this realm in which we're in, and it's taking concepts from our current timeline, from the past, and also possible future timelines with AI and machines basically feeding off of humans. We're kind of at the sort of crux, the crossroads now of machines merging with humans, and we're told it's for our benefit, but really it's more to benefit benefit the artificial. One sec. Sorry about that. Coffee was finished. So
I'm back, brother.
On the hob.
Sorry for that. Sorry, people. I made a charcoal and it cracked in my pliers.
So it's interesting that you use charcoal for like frankincense and stuff. I use water. So I've got a what's it called? The diffuser that I use. I put essential oils in it. Yeah, I've got some charcoal somewhere, but I prefer putting it in water. Of course, like I'm quite drawn to the watery world, the water element. So it kind of makes sense that way. I wonder if there's a difference though into the benefits of whether it's like water steam, like water vapor, or whether it's done via charcoal. I'd be interested to know that actually.
There's a massive difference. The difference is huge. Let me get that difference up on the screen for you guys, so we can drink in the beauty of the difference. But water is great. I'm not using essential oils. That's why I use charcoal, because I'm using the actual resin. So the actual resin looks like, let me find a piece of resin for you. It looks like chunks of resin, right? Like this. This is Boswellia Carturi. There's different kinds of frankincense. I've got like a few different types. And I break this up into little pieces and I just drop it on my charcoal. And I do have essential oil. I put the oil into carrier oil, which I will like rub on my body. Sometimes what you're doing is quite nice. Sometimes in a home, if people have like asthma or sometimes, but you can develop a tolerance for the smoke because it's natural smoke. So why carbon? Ooh, sorry. I've got a little lockpick expert on my toenail, so I've got to be a little bit careful. I'm just trying to see where it is. There we go. There it is. Okay. So carbon. Okay, so the atomic weight is 12, right? On the one side of the point. Okay, come up. He's biting my toenail. He's quite a cheeky little boy. You're getting way naughty, huh? Come, let me move my hair out of the way for you. So we've got carbon, which is atomic number 6, Venus, right? But it's Venus of the Empress. I want you to think about the Empress and the forces of life. And it's a cubic form, crystal. So there's an element of, it's obviously related to Saturn on one hand. And on another hand, it's related to Venus. It's also 12 on the 1 point, right, of the decimal, right? And so that's quite important. It relates us to the macrocosm. It relates us to the Jupiterian principle of expansion, even though it contains, and so it's contracts. Charcoal, carbon is the basis of organic life. So carbon has its place in our bodies. So our bodies have a lot of information, water flowing through the body, but the structure of the body is related to carbon specifically. So programming the structure as opposed to programming the information flowing through the system. Does that make sense as a difference, the way I'm explaining it? I hope it does.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is water is related to hexagonal to a hexagon as well, and also structure, because around our DNA and our cells we have structured water, like exclusion zone water, easy water, plasma, which atomically is a hexagon. So carbon and water are both very similar, so it's interesting, they're both related to structure because the water around our cells is structured water.
Right, exactly. So, and when we're looking at the atomic weight, right, it's quite interesting because it's 12 on the one hand, and on the other side of the comma, it's 0, 1, 1. We usually go with the 3 positions, right? Operating within the sphere of the decade. And the 1,000, the 1,000 is sort of fundamental. Hence, you've got the 1,000 petals of the Sahasrara chakra and the 1,000 numerical potential expansions of the Paleo-Hebrew Phoenician language, as is outlined in the Hermetic Kabbalah, as well as other forms of Kabbalah. In fact, the language itself goes up to the number 1,000, and the number 1,000 is a gigantic aleph, right, which is the basis of the alphabet, which starts on 1 and ends at 1,000. And then you have the numerations for the hundreds, the tens, and the enneagram represented. So you have the enneagram represented. Then you have 10 to 90 represented. Then you have 100 to 900 represented. So you have 3 cycles of 9, which is 27. 27 being a foundational, fundamental number. It's on one hand, it's 1/4 of 108, which is the astral map, the mapping of the astral sphere, how the chakras are related to each other. Hence, when we work with the astral body, as in like mysticism is very focused on the astral, we will work with the 108 as the sequences. But when we're working with the etheric body, we'll work with the etheric body. We're working with the 72 quinets. Western occultism, Western magic tends to focus on the quinets, the 72 elements, as opposed to 108. So there's a very interesting nuance here where it's the 12 and the 11. So yeah, carbon is like pretty incredible stuff, really, if you get right down to it. It is also what becomes a diamond, right? It's what becomes a diamond. So it roots back to Venus, if you see where I'm coming from, the diamond, carbon, compressed carbon. So yeah, very, very interesting question, that interesting idea. But using water has got its own other potentials as well, obviously, because water is quite useful in many ways, right? There's many things about water, I think, that are fascinating to contemplate as an idea. So let me just get something up here. So I was having a conversation on Facebook just the other day, well, actually yesterday, and that conversation was in a space called Three Worlds Shamanism. And I discovered something that has been on the back of my mind for quite a while. And, it's something that is, I think, a massive issue, right? And that needs to be considered. So I just want to get some clarity here. So yeah, the conversation was about a particular exercise that's being discussed here. Now, when I saw this exercise being discussed, I was like, well, it's interesting. These people are putting out their little rituals that they do in public, which is not something I would do personally. I don't think. I think that the sanctity of your ritual should be sanctified, right? It shouldn't be a show device to like show off to the world. Look at me doing my little ritual with my drum and stuff. That's like a very sacred thing. You don't do it for the public unless there happens to be people around that are specifically supposed to benefit from that, right? And there seems to be this trend in the world where people tend to want to do this, which I find quite interesting. So there's this guy. He's Nicholas Breezewood. He's written a couple of books, right? Interesting. He's written the books, about shamanism, weather magic. He does the Sacred Hoop magazine. It's quite a nice magazine, actually, editorial-wise. My girlfriend loves it. Sacred Drums of Siberia. So what happens? People start writing books about shamanism, as you can see here. I hope you guys can see the screen, or is it just me seeing it? No, it's not. Give me a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Give me a moment. I'm a little bit slow on the uptake here. I thought I was showing you. So these are some of the books that's been written by this guy, Walking with the Tiger and Horses and Dragons. And I find like people tend to do a lot of reading, right? And they read a lot of books. They get a lot of ideas, theories, philosophies, and then they write a lot of books. And because they've written books, they get like a following. And now it's very hard not to get a swollen head when you're becoming a little bit sort of well-known because you've written a few books. Yeah. And I can sort of fully appreciate that. It must be a naturally challenging thing to do. It's sort of one of the reasons why I've never sort of been drawn to writing books. I mean, people often say I should probably write a book, but I'm like, it doesn't specifically appeal to me because it's more, I don't know. To me, the sacred mystery should be kept as sacred. And maybe that's an old school indoctrination thing that I need to check within myself, because I've always sort of maintained that, the esoteric wisdom, when you write it down and people read it, they're going to misinterpret it because that's how text works, right? The sacred should be spoken because there's a quality of voice, there's a quality of presence of a human being sharing. And when you're speaking, people can say, what does that mean? Instead of, oh no, I know what that means. I'm going to assume I know what it means. And now everything that you've written after that is based upon their assumption of something that was wrong about what you meant. And now they've got a complete delusional idea of what you just said. They've read the works, but they think they understand it. They read another book, get the same delusion, read another book, get the same delusion. And then they start writing books because they've read all these other books, right? You see this pattern? And now they're writing the same books, spreading delusion about the delusions that they've read. Only the people that they read the books by to begin with had done the same thing, right? And so you've got this delusion. So this is why shamanism doesn't work in books, right? You cannot learn anything about shamanism from books. In fact, I always say to people, stay away from books about shamanism because it's delusional nonsense, right? If you want to go back in time, if you want to go to the Himalayas, you want to see real shamanism, it involves risking your life. It's a very serious business. It's not bells, it's not whistles, it's not incense, it's not all this nonsense, ayahuasca, drinking medicines. It's none of that nonsense. It's real. It's hard. The austerities that shamans would do are intense, right? It's nothing light-hearted. Even you go to a Native American shaman, they would put themselves into a sweat box for like 3 days. They would sweat to the point where their hearts are on the edge of heart failure. Do you understand what I'm saying? They would push themselves to their physical limits so that they are having an almost near-death experience purification. It's not for the light-hearted or the faint-hearted. It's not this cool, sweet shamanism. Let's take some psychedelics and have a great experience, and now we're a shaman. None of that nonsense. And it's not in books either. The people that write books about shamanism are the people that are interested in shamanism, but the real shaman don't actually write books. That's something that I've also observed in life. So anyway, I was on this thing, and in this YouTube conversation, and I noticed like some of the things that were being said here were just, well, they were bordering on ridiculous. And let me get an instance of it so I can share it with you. Why am I having such a hard time finding this thing? Is it here? Is it there?
So I picked up this book not too long ago, Franklin. It says, the only introduction you ever need. It's the only book you ever need on shamanism. And I've had a look through it. What I like about it is it's not very thick. It's quite thin. And it's certainly interesting. But the thing is with books, is it's like solid matter. It's there. It's for you to pick up any time. And also you don't need to take any of it as like fact. It's just someone's perspective. So I do like books. I've got quite a good collection of books. I just haven't read any of them. Maybe when I'm older, when the kids have grown up, I'll have more time to do that. But I think books are great because what if the internet goes? Like, the thing is, the current system, society we're in now, we don't live in a village. We don't have elders. We don't have people to guide us. We don't even have parents to guide us in most cases. People don't even have parents. Their teachers in school don't guide them. They just read it from a script. The news is reading from a script. Even lots of stuff online, reading from scripts. So I think that books are very beneficial, but it's kind of like stuck in time. People do like re-edits and reversions and stuff like that, and updated and stuff. But I think books are very beneficial. The more beneficial would be people in person, to help and guide you and offer wisdom. But unfortunately, there's a serious lack of wisdom in the world. This is why people go to like self-proclaimed shamans or guides, people online, getting their information from AI, sharing AI content. It's the algorithm pushing it and stuff. So I mean, I personally think books are good. And Hollow Bonehawk said that she's read his books and it helped her. So I think that I mean, if you've got a book, like somebody said in chat, if everyone's got a book in them and it's best that it stays there. Well, I mean, I think writing stuff down is really good. I'd love to be able to write and finish a book, even though I'm still like very much a novice in all this stuff, like about 5 or 6 years delving into all this. Like, I do tend to find fresh perspectives, though. It's not regurgitated, and I'd love to write some of my findings down with etymology, symbology, stuff like that. But I'm hesitant because it's always changing. It's always expanding. If I write it down, it's going to be stuck. And I have a real issue with finalizing and finishing things. But I'd love to write a book. And, we can't not write stuff down because it's only stuck in like one time, you know. And I think if you were to write a book, it might reach a lot of people that it wouldn't usually reach, and we can't really rely on technology like the internet to share stuff. So I mean, don't be hesitant to write a book, Franklin, because I think that perhaps you should, you know. It doesn't have to be grandiose, like, oh, this is the way and stuff like that. Like perhaps some people do, but I think that there's no harm in sharing stuff. Like I was very hesitant to start going on podcasts a couple of years ago, and the podcast I went on even last year, I'd love to go back on because there's things I said which I've now learned and I've altered my perception. Not that I was lying, but that I was just giving these kind of concepts, tying these threads together. And actually now I'd like to come at it from a different angle, but I'm still glad I did, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be used to talking to people and having conversations. And I think that with books, it might reach somebody in like 50 years, where online, a video that's made talking about the same stuff might be deleted. Like that's the thing with books, they can't be deleted. So I think there's definitely benefits to writing stuff down, you know.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not thinking like that there should never be books and that no one should ever write books. What I'm talking about specifically has got to do with spirituality and the occult and the philosophy behind it. Just because most of the books out there are misleading. They have got this false idea of the Kabbalah. They have this false idea of Gnosticism. They have this false idea of Vedic cosmology, false idea of the chakras, false idea of everything out there that has to do with true mysticism and true occult thought. And that is largely because of the books that are being written. You see, when people write books, they don't go out and find the truth for themselves. So from a shamanic perspective, I would say don't read books. Read the book of nature. Don't read books on sacred geometry. Go and walk into nature and observe the flowers. Observe the sacred geometry. Observe which birds interact with those flowers. Observe where those flowers grow and how they are in relation to the rest of the nature. And that will get one to the point where the spirit of that flower, the consciousness within that being, will reveal to you its true inner nature. This is true, we'll call it sorcery, occultism, spirituality, esotericism. So what's happened is people no longer go into nature because they substitute true knowledge for fake knowledge that they find in books. And the problem with books is people come to me all the time for relationship advice, right? And he said, she said, she said, he said, he said, she said, she said, he said, break up. Why? They were communicating via text. She said x plus 2 equals 5. But because he was reading text, he read x plus 3 equals 4. Because he's x plus 3 equals 4 equals, so he responded to the x plus 2 equal 5, and he said, but what if x is minus 7? She thought he meant, what if x is plus 6? So now they've got these two completely different narratives running in their heads. He thinks she meant that when she meant this. She thinks he meant this when he meant that. Now that becomes an argument, and a big argument forms over nothing. And this is like a really common reason for breakups, just to bring it into the human context for a moment. So when they say that language, and there's been a lot of research into this, I believe that 60% of all communication is nonverbal. Are you aware of that? This is the official stat. Between 50, 40, and 60% of all communication is nonverbal. That is to do the tone of the voice, the inflections, the body language, the way that it's said. So for us to be here communicating, our ideas are being clearly communicated, and people can hear what we're really saying because they're getting pretty much 100% hit. They can see us, they can hear us. There's an intonation, the way that we're using the words, where if you write a word down, it loses all of that context. So now I have to read a book and I have to project my own context onto the way that these words are written. And there's an opportunity. Now, to answer what Hollowbone Hawk said, if you are a spiritually gifted individual, you will go into nature and nature will talk to you. You will look at a blank wall and that blank wall will reveal something to you. Looking at a rock, the rock will show you something. There will be a communication from everything around you. She happens to be a particularly gifted individual that would have basically gotten insight and help from whatever she had read. She could have read a political manual and it would have been of benefit to her, right? She could have read a manual for how to run a jail and she would have found a spiritual message in that. We will anthropomorphize everything within us, around us. This is the natural human condition. So just because you got something good from a book doesn't mean that that book was giving you the truth. There's two different stories here. And books are really great. How to build a house? Absolutely, a book. We need to know how to build houses. This is specific information. How to manage a particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say how to build a house. I would say it's better that that's done, like, for example, by someone who's done it before, like a master builder, in person, orally. I would never build a house by reading a book. So I just want to flip what you just said. Yeah.
What I mean by that is how much mortar, how to make your mortar, what is the ingredients, how many pounds per pound of water, per pound of this, per pound of that. How many bricks am I going to need to build a wall of so many square feet? How deep should I dig my foundation? You should be trained by a master builder, but books have a purpose for specific information that cannot be misinterpreted due to human contextual communication. Numbers don't lie. If you write down numbers, numbers are universal. They don't have intonation. They don't have an emotional inflection. They are just purely factual basis. When it comes to medicine, for example, mixing a particular medicine, you need so many grams of this herb, so many grams of that herb. You need to boil it in water for so many minutes. This is what you're required to do with it. You must stand it in the sun for so long. Then when they take the medicine, they need to take so much every 3 hours. You're writing that down. That is useful information, right? But what you, and maybe when to pick the herb. What time of month is the best lunar point to pick the herb on? Pick it on the second day of full moon or the first day of new moon or whatever, right? All of this information can be documented and can be kept for the future. And this is great use of writing. But I think when it comes to spiritual philosophy, we are now in a different realm of contemplative ideas. And when it comes to ideologies, and let me show you what I mean, just to give a bit of context to this idea, right? And I think this might be quite useful, right? Just to give us an insight into the specifics, because I do believe that there is definitely a need for this. You know, I do get the sense that we are rather lost in this world. And for example, teachers and gurus and shaman, we need to be able to connect our hearts to our brains. And in order to connect our hearts to our brains, we need to be in resonance with the correct people. This is like really, really important. And when we're not in resonance with the correct people, we can become, in a sense, what's the word? Programmed energetically on a vibrational field by something that's particularly not healthy, right? And so I'll give you a bit of context here on what I'm talking about. So the nature of this conversation the post was fine. It's about chod. Now, chod, if you don't know it, is a form of Vajra. It's the Vajra form of working with the proverbial lightning bolt energy, right, to align the etheric and the astral body. It's a Tibetan practice. That particular form of Tibetan practice has got different forms of it in different sects within the Tibetism, right, the Buddhism. So we're talking Mahayana, we're talking North, we're talking Tibet. And because there's different forms of Buddhism in the world. And it's insightful for us to recognize that these different sects are like the Catholics, right? Some of them are like Catholics. For example, people don't know this. The Dalai Lama, let me give you an insight into it before we get into the nitty-gritty of this. The Dalai Lama outlawed Dorje Shugden worship in 1996. He didn't outlaw it, he banned it. But he then outlawed it in 2008. I watched it on the equivalent of C-SPAN in Tibet. They have a C-SPAN type channel. C-SPAN is in America, where you can watch all congressional hearings, and they are all recorded for the public domain. Tibet has this similar equivalent of a channel where you can go and watch any political. You'll have it in the UK as well, right? Where you can literally watch the discussions and the debates as they are happening in the House of Commons and when they are passing laws, right? This is public domain information, and it has to be because of so-called democracy. So they have this channel in Tibet, and I was watching in 2008 because I happened to be in Nepal, that the Dalai Lama brought a motion against Dorje Shugden, and he wanted it to be banned. He wanted it to be lawfully banned, legislatively banned. I also was aware of the fact that he had been on the radio telling people that they should not tolerate this witchcraft, and that this was evil spirit worship and it was witchcraft, and that people must basically not tolerate it. So what happened in Tibet was thousands of people were kicked out of their homes by the public. Their homes were burnt. Some of them were unalived. Many of them were injured. When they were injured, many of them were rejected from hospitals because they were Dorje Shugden worshippers, and people had heard on the radios by the Dalai Lama that we need to get rid of this. We need to force this curse out of Tibet because it's a curse upon our people. These were the kind of strong languages that he was using, and I actually listened to some of his broadcasts. There was a wonderful Swiss couple that had actually caught him in an interview, and they had played some of his recordings to him. And they had translators there from Tibet that had clearly translated for him. First time I ever saw the Dalai Lama lose his temper. He got so angry, he started shouting and frothing from the mouth. This was before AI existed. This is more than 20 something years ago. He lost his temper. He started shouting. He ripped the thing off. I thought he was going to physically get violent by the way he was behaving. He ended that communication with them, called them liars, and said, "You guys said you wanted to talk to me about Buddhism, not this rubbish." And because they had called him out, and they had shown then footage of the fires burning of people's homes, people being driven, people being chased with sticks, people being harmed, women being beaten with sticks, children being harmed, children being harmed in schools, children not being allowed into schools, hospitals rejecting people, people not being allowed to go to the shop and buy food. And this Dorje Shugden persecution happened over years in Tibet, and it was a huge cover-up by the Dalai Lama and his fraudulent little crew of fakers, right? He then went to try and dismiss the freedom of religion from Tibet. I watched the proceeding. I didn't see the outcome of the court case, but I watched him present the case. They do have the subtitles on that equivalent channel, the C-SPAN type channel. I watched it in Kathmandu. I was shocked. I did my research to find out if this was legit, and it turned out it was legit. At that time, the internet wasn't controlled by AI. Now, I'm not a Dorje Shugden worshipper. I'm not a Dorje Shugden devotee. I don't have proverbial skin in the game with this little cult argument between Dorje Shugden and Dalai Lama. But what I did was I got back to the UK and I did my research. I went to find the Dorje Shugden people and speak to them. There were huge numbers of Dorje Shugden people in London campaigning to get help because they were trying to save their families and rescue their families from Tibet. They couldn't even get asylum status because of the way that the Dalai Lama and the money behind his organization and the way that he controlled the public narrative. And Dorje Shugden was demonized as being an evil spirit. Right. So this is the background. So anybody that has been brainwashed by the Dalai Lama and his devotees will believe that Dorje Shugden is an evil spirit. That's all there is to it, right? But I'm telling you now, there's a lot more to it. And if you start to uncover. So anyway, we were on Facebook and we were having this conversation, and this is about the chod. The chod is there's nothing wrong with the chod. The chod is a mantra, a 100-syllable mantra that is chanted. The formation of the chod ritual looks exactly, almost identical to the Dorje Shugden ritual. I want to be clear about this. In fact, let me Google it for you so I can show you. Even, I'm pretty sure even Google will show me. Dorje Shugden ritual form is very similar to the, how do I do that little dot? How do I do that little dot on this keyboard? I'm using a different keyboard here. To the chod. Okay, maybe I don't need the dot. Let's hope I don't. To the chod ritual. And you should be able to get information here. Okay, so let's see here. So you can see that the Shugdendo ritual, which is an ascetic ritual, right? Which is part of the Dorje Shugden worship, which has been banned in Tibet. And the Tibetan chod ritual shows significant similarities, primarily through their shared roots in esoteric Buddhism, the shamanic tendencies that both these rituals, and the goals are a little bit different. So the setting is similar. The chod, no, this is not the same one. The Dorje Shugden ritual structure. Why are they showing me this Japanese version? You should be able to find it, and I'm pretty sure I will. Okay, so the Shugden and Shod similarities. The chod practitioners work traditionally, they train in the graveyards, which is where the Shugden works as well. They're both working with a very sort of powerful dark energy. The chod involves visualization, and they've got to cut their own body's connection by transforming the nectar of the spirit. The Shugden rituals involve offering negative emotions and offering the hatred and the jealousy and the anger into the fire to burn away these negative qualities. They both use very similar structured chants. The chod is 100-syllable. The Shugden chant is not 100-syllable chant, but it's a shamanic chant that's done. They both use very similar drums and bells. The actual look of the ritual is very, very similar, right? If you were to actually observe these two rituals, they are very similar to each other, to be fair. So I noticed something like, by the way this guy was talking about this, so I thought to do a little tester. And my comment here was, great practice, makes me think of the Dorje Shugden sect that the Dalai Lama was criminalizing in Tibet Parliament less than 2 decades ago. Big love, brother. He then came back immediately with that narrative from Dalai Lama. Dorje Shugden is the pernicious and dangerous demon. It's not just a sect, and it wasn't criminalized. It was warned against. Now, this is the lie that has been told by his followers, but actually, any of you want to go and take a look? 2008 parliamentary hearing, it was literally brought into parliament, and in 1996, it was banned. In 2020, I believe the Dalai Lama relaxed his position against people being allowed to worship Dorje Shugden in their own homes privately, because he recognized the pressure internationally from too much awareness about the exact nature of what had been happening in Tibet, and he wanted that covered up. So he got all calm and kind and forgiving and sweet and said, well, you're allowed to practice, but not in the monasteries. No monasteries allowed to practice this. It's still not allowed to be done officially. You can't go to a Dorje Shugden priest to have it done for you, but you can have a Dorje Shugden shrine in your home now. You won't be criminalized, or you won't be trouble to you for this. So there has been a lot of controversy around this particular practice. because he claims that it's then this other guy here who's also the same kind of, these guys have been indoctrinated by these Buddhist monks. And so they've been initiated by these Dalai Lama type Buddhist monks. And let's not forget the Dalai Lama is the guy who put his tongue in a child's mouth not so long ago. And he didn't just do it willy-nilly. He forced the child to do it, and the child didn't want to do it. He had to force the child 5 times. I watched the video. The child really was looking scared and nervous, and he then said something in the child's ear that looked like a threat. And the child then begrudgingly allowed the Dalai Lama to put his tongue inside his mouth. I've never seen something so disgusting and something so inhumane in my life that an adult would force a child for him to allow his tongue into the child's mouth. Being someone who's very versed in the occult, I understand the occult nature of what's going on there, and it's not good. How would you feel about something like that?
Yeah, he asked the child to suck his tongue, didn't he? I mean, putting a part of yourself, any part of you, in a child and asking it to suck it isn't good. The thing is, he's a CIA asset, right? And so what's happened is that he's been planted there to probably detach people from Buddhism. Like we have other people planted in place to detach people from Judaism, and people in place to detach people from Christianity, because there are these people on the world stage doing deranged things. And it's all part of Project Bluebeam, in my opinion, to detach people from God, to bring in their new AI, one world religion, giant space show, whatever. It's all a part of that. But yeah, the Dalai Lama is a CIA asset. So of course, when he gets told to do something, like, was he told to do that, or did he just do it anyway? Who knows? He still did it. Doesn't matter. It's disgusting either way.
Go and watch the video, people. Go and find the video. It's out there. Unless the Dalai Lama's crew has managed to have it scrubbed, which they may have, you can actually see the video and you can see the child. And the child doesn't want to do it. And he says to the child, no, do it. And the child's pulling away. He grabs the child's hands and he doesn't allow the child to move away from him because the child's trying to get away from him. He physically restrains the child. He says to him, no, you must do this. No, you must do this. Then he whispers something in the child's ear, and the child almost recoils to what he whispers in his ear. You can see the subtle reaction in the child, to which then the child does what he says. And he probably said something to that child of like, I'm a very powerful man. I can do things to your family. You don't want your family to get in trouble. He probably warned the child about something. We can only speculate, but it was a very clear sign of what was going on there. And his followers, all these people, and this is why I'm shedding a light on this, because people need to know about this. People need to understand that there are a lot of severely brainwashed people out there that have been completely brainwashed by this cult. So the Dalai Lama said that this Dorje Shugden worship is worshipping evil spirits. And I then brought into the conversation with these people, and I won't run you through the whole conversation, I won't bore you with it, but I brought into the conversation that there's a lot, there's a lot more for us to look at here, right? And I mentioned one of the monks after this Yeshe guy had said that Shugden practice was designed as a sectarian method of control, offering worldly success. Let me tell you about Shugden. Okay, for those of you that don't know, I'll give you a breakdown, and you can look this up for yourself and you can research it. Everything I'm saying is verifiable, right? The Shugden is highly connected to Ganapati. Now we're looking at synchromysticism for a moment. There is a Ganapati in Tibet. They borrowed the Ganapati from Vedic knowledge, right? Synchromysticism. A lot of Tibet was affected by Sanskrit knowledge and Vedic knowledge. So Ganapati is one of the guarding spirits, and this is going back to the 11th century, right? And before, I'm guessing. Ganapati was a guarding spirit that would guard the dharmas. And Ganapati had 4 emanations. There are 5 forms of Ganapati. And these 5 forms are the 5 different forms. One of them is the angry Ganapati that will protect and make sure that the impure don't get hold of the Dharma. The Dharma is knowledge of divine, knowledge of supernatural, magic, and it can be used to do harm. This is why the Dharma needs to be kept pure, and only the pure of heart are allowed access to the true knowledge, the true inner wisdom, and the awakening. You could think of Dharma, if you want to translate Dharma into English, gnosis. Gnosis is the closest English word that relates to what Dharma means. Dharma is personal experience of divine knowledge. Gnosis is personal experience of divine knowledge. And the gnosis empowers one to have great supernatural abilities very often if one travels deeply enough into the gnosis or the Dharma. And so there is this powerful force of protection, and this embodiment of protection is part of the systemic development of this esoteric art. Now, at a later stage, and I think it's about the 17th century, there was a shift and an evolution. And there's this priest called Manchuri that is fundamental. He's not just a priest, he's a bodhisattva. He had attained full enlightenment according to the stories and was ready to pass off into samadhi, but he chose to embody physical form as a bodhisattva to come back to work to assist people. This is really very closely aligned with Dorje Shugden, and the form of this enlightened being, this bodhisattva that protects the Dharma, was characterized as Dorje Shugden. And hence the alignment of Dorje Shugden with Ganapati still exists to this day. In fact, the most aggressive form of Dorje Shugden, he is riding on a white elephant. And of course, there are 4 further emanations of the Dorje Shugden's archetypal consciousness. And so there are 5 forms, in the same way that there are the 5 gunas of Ganesha in India. We've got to understand the synchromysticism. We've got to understand the relevance, the connections. If you study them, the synchromistic connection will be so relevantly obvious to anybody that has done any homework that it's fundamental. So this evil spirit that the Dalai Lama is talking about, right? If we want to go into it, there's somebody who is the the Tsem Rinpoche. And the Tsem Rinpoche, here's a picture of him. This guy basically was ordained by the Dalai Lama. When was he ordained? I think he was ordained in 1987. Let's see what we see here. When was he ordained? Yeah, 1987. The Tsem Rinpoche was ordained by the Dalai Lama himself in Dharamsala to become a monk. So this isn't just some weird fringe guy. Now the Tsem Rinpoche basically was a Dorje Shugden priest, and he worked with Dorje Shugden. Now, it's important to understand that the Dalai Lama himself was initiated into the rites of Dorje Shugdenism, right? So if he says it's an evil spirit, well, it's part of his own initiations to become the Dalai Lama, right? The hypocrisy is starting to show, I'm sure, for those of you that have insight and are interested in looking into the truth. It will become very blatantly obvious what's going on here. So you have to really stick your head in the ground not to recognize what's going on here. To buy the ideas sold, right? That ridiculous idea. Like, I don't even know how ridiculous to call this idea, you know, that was said here by Nicholas Breezewood. Dorje Shugden is a pernicious and dangerous demon. It's not just a sect. It wasn't criminalized. It was warned against. So it was warned against, apparently. So I actually went and found a whole lot of evidence and put it into this conversation so that these people could respond, these 2 guys that were obviously Dalai Lama worshippers. And they were able to ignore all the information that I shared. And I shared the specifics, like, for example, what process was brought before Tibetan Parliament in 2008, I know because I was there, regarding Dorje Shugden worship by Dalai Lama. He was one of the main spokespeople that I saw speaking about it. And let's see, right? So it's important to see whether people are making up nonsense or whether they're talking the truth. This is always, to me, fundamentally important. So in 2008, the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan Administration, the government in exile, intensified the ban on worship of the deity Dorje Shugden, right? Leading to a significant reaffirmation process regarding the restriction of the practice within Tibet in exile communities. So not only in Tibet, but the exiled Tibetans were not allowed to practice this. Intensifying the ban, meaning greater consequences, right? The decree following the 2008 Dalai Lama's teachings in southern India, the Parliament in exile of monastic authority implemented a stricter forced process to identify and separate the Shugden practitioners, right? Now, what was happening in Tibet at the time was people were being forced to live. I want you to remember Nazi Germany, right? When people were forced to wear armbands, when people were forced to live in special secular communities before things got out of hand. This similar process was happening in Tibet. People were forced to live in certain places. They were given specific housing in specific areas so that they could be easily identified as Shugden worshippers by the rest of the populace. The amount of evil that has gone into the persecution of these Dorje Shugden people in Tibet is incredible. Incredible. So now we see that there literally was a ban. There literally was, and I'm not just saying a verbal ban, I'm talking about a specific ban, right? A specific ban which is lawfully administrated on an administrative level in the legal, using legal infrastructure of Tibet. Now, here we see this brainwashing. This is where the brainwashing comes out. Now, I want you to bear in mind that this person is writing books as a teacher to teach spirituality to other people. But the level of delusion is quite sad because they're very quick to correct you when you say something that's true. That, like I said before this, right? Dorje Shugden sect that the Dalai Lama was criminalizing in Tibet Parliament just a bit less than 2 decades ago, right? It's now 2026. The ban happened in 2008. It's 18 years. I'm pretty much exactly specific factually. This is what happened. But the guys here basically pointing out it wasn't criminalized, it was warned against. Can you see the level of brainwashing? You can point out a specific fact to people. They won't even bother to go and Google to find the truth of, did this really happen? They will just take what their gurus told them as the golden truth and correct you. And this is like a sign here. This is a real sign of like a kind of a psychotic mental state, because normal, intelligent people don't correct other people until they know that they're correcting them properly, right? If I don't know that you're wrong, who am I to tell you you're wrong when you're actually right and I'm wrong? Isn't that what a narcissist does? Right? It's called gaslighting, basically. And we can inadvertently gaslight people, but it's not an excuse in my book. If you don't know, you should say, well, as far as I know, this is what I believe. I'm not sure what you're saying is true. I don't know about this. That's a different thing than to say you are wrong and here's the truth and then present a lie. It's very, very sad. It's a lack of integrity. It's a lack of decency in my opinion as well. And then, of course, in the same sentence, call this dangerous demon. So based upon their lack of knowledge of actually what happened in Parliament, we've got to imagine their lack of knowledge of what Dorje Shugden really is. I think that's a reasonable assumption. So when we look at one, and I'm not going to be long, brother. I'm just going to try and be short with this, right? So we look at Dorje Shugden, right? And this is a story about how this person. Oh, and one more thing. One of the things that this Nicholas Breezewood and his little sidekick, who's just as ridiculous as he is, to be honest, both making up lies, said, oh no, this guy lived in opulence and wealth, and he made total big success in the West, and he lived this great life, and he wasn't even really a this or that. This guy lived a humble life, more humble than the Dalai Lama, if we're going to be honest about this, right? And I just want to show you evidence, right? I'm not making this up. They make up stuff when they speak, right? This is the hotel where the Dalai Lama goes when he goes to New York. That's the hotel. This is the exact hotel. That's the pool of the hotel where Dalai Lama swims when he's in New York if he feels like swimming. Those are the kind of rooms. This is not the foyer. This is a room in a hotel, part of a complex of room. There's the bedroom, which is attached to a living room, and you've got your own thing with 24-hour. This is a 5-star hotel, right? And this 5-star hotel is called the Park Hyatt Hotel. However, the Dalai Lama has stayed in other hotels as well. I do think I have a list of some of the significant hotels that he has stayed in as well. Do I not? And just to be clear, right? These are the kind of rooms that you have. These are private rooms in this hotel. It's a very, very sought after, very fancy hotel. He has stayed in the Sheraton Hotel. He has stayed in all those fancy 5-star hotels. Some of them have Michelin food. This is the kind of place where the Dalai Lama stays when he travels. But they then said that the Rinpoche in question that we're talking about, right, Tem, that he lived an opulent lifestyle. I want to show you where Tem stayed when he stayed in California. This is the place where he stayed, right? I think it's quite important to this is called the Fenmore Apartments. It's not a hotel, it's not room service, it's apartments. And it's normal apartments, like a kind of a place that you would rent if you went on holiday. People like us that don't have millions of dollars would stay in places like this. These are the places. He also stayed in actual monastic places in the States where there were organizations where accommodation was sorted out for him, like within that space, within the local community, a bedroom in someone's house. That's how the Guruji that I knew in India, whenever he did go to the West, which was very rarely, he wouldn't stay in hotels. He would stay in someone's home, humble. He didn't need big houses and big expensive things. He never, ever went to a big hotel, ever, even when his students tried to say, please come, we want you to come and do darshan for us. No, I just want to stay in someone's room. That's what you would imagine from a spiritual guru. Anyway, this is the Dalai Lama. Now, these guys were making these allegations about this Tem Rinpoche. Once again, propaganda and lies spread by the Dalai Lama that has basically been lying about this guy, right? Saying that he's living a lifestyle that he isn't. He actually lived in Malaysia. He didn't really travel much. He lived fairly humble lifestyle in Malaysia, and he's well known. He got an honorary doctorate in psychology because of his humility and because of the work that he actually did. He worked tirelessly with actual charity and trying to help people. So this guy was nothing like the Dalai Lama, but he was apparently worshipping an evil spirit. Now, to get back to this point that I was trying to make here. So when you look here, this is the image of the so-called evil spirit. It's got the sword of truth in the right hand, the sword of wisdom. And this representation is actually this Guruji.
You're not showing it, Franklin. It's not on the screen, the image.
Oh, thank you for that, brother.
No worries.
So there we go. Got to remove that one first so we can put that one on. So there is the idea, and I'm not going to be long, brother. This is where you can see the iconography, right? This is that bodhisattva that I was talking about earlier, with the sword of wisdom and discrimination in his hand. And here he is coming with the passion. And so this is about some of the art that's been done with regards to the Fuvian art, where here they have done different kinds of Fuvian art that he was very interested in promoting art. So Dorje Shugden, the protector of kindness, right? So this guy never once said a bad word about the Dalai Lama. I want to point this out. The Dalai Lama called him out, called him names, said that he was an evil spirit worshiper. Their organization basically smear campaigned this guy because they felt challenged. And I want you to understand why the Dalai Lama needed to get rid of Shugdenism. The Shugden is against the bonding of the 4 different dharmas of the Tibetan system. They were all supposed to have their own places, and they all have, but the Dalai Lama, in order to get absolute control of the entire monastic order, had to blend all of the 4 under his control. And Shugden, they were resisting being under total control of the Dalai Lama. And this is really important to understand. There's a political element as to why Shugden was removed. But you won't hear about this within the confines of the Dalai Lama's crew, right? But there is an element of this. If you go and do your research, you will find that there is actually quite a lot that's been said about this by international reporters. So who is Dorje Shugden? So Dorje Shugden is an enlightened Dharma protector, the wrathful emanation of Manjushri. Now, Manjushri is a name that you will have heard in the Vedas as well. He's referred to as the father of all Buddhas. He is the bodhisattva that takes one towards the absolute liberation and protects the dharmas from those that are not worthy, in his wrathful form as Dorje Shugden. The origin of all the accounts, Manjushri acquires enlightenment, but instead of ascending to become a Buddha, he returns as a bodhisattva to assist all mankind as enlightened beings. As the embodiment of the Buddha's wisdom, Manjushri is one of the most important bodhisattvas and is highly regarded in many traditions of Buddhism, not just the Dorje Shugden, many of them, right? In Sanskrit, his name means he who is noble and gentle. And yes, Manjushri is written about in the Vedas as a very important character. This is part of our ancient history. And he's written about as Wen Shu Shili in China, and Monju Basato in Japan, and Musu Posal in Korea, and Champel Yang in Tibet. These are all the same person. Throughout history, Manjushri returns to help our spiritual journey. Dorje Shugden is a wrathful form of Manjushri as a Dharma protector, an enlightened being who averts our karmic obstacles in life and helps us achieve our spiritual realizations. Dorje Shugden manifests in the form of a monk wearing a pure robes of a fully ordained monk, the Bhikkshu, showing that he brings kindness, compassion, and generosity towards others. Now, the argument is that, like Ganesha, he blesses people with physical abundance. And that is the argument that they've made, that he's like this opulent and he's material. This is the stuff that you'll see in this conversation, which I won't even bother to show to you guys anymore because it's just ridiculous. This nonsense that they were vomiting. So here's what we've got is a sect that is demonizing another sect because of political power, right? And we've got all these people around the world that have basically called this Dorje Shugden a demon, and this has been done so that the past of what's happened in Tibet with the Tibetan people can be hidden. This is what happens when politics and religion get blended, right? It's the same politics we see in the UK, the same politics we see in the USA. Let's face it, the Dalai Lama is a politician first and foremost, but he uses religion as a weapon and he harms those that get in his way. And when he's not doing that, he's playing with kids in ways that nobody should. I don't know. I've gone on and on and on and on. But I think that this is a bigger issue. It goes beyond the Dalai Lama. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I personally don't know too much about the the whole thing. This is the first time I'm hearing lots of this information, other than the fact the Dalai Lama is a CIA asset, and there was a CIA Tibetan program, which the Dalai Lama was a part of, and of course him doing that weird stuff with that kid as well. But I don't really know too much about this. I have tried searching. I've searched up the Dorje Shugden, and it looks like he's riding a white dragon, which is pretty cool. I've just tried looking at the image to see what I can kind of decipher symbolically of the image, and I'm trying to work out why he was demonized. Is like someone. What I'm trying to do is try and find a common thread, because like this narrative, as you say, is probably is repeated. So I'm trying to find the common thread. Do
you want me to tell you what it is?
Well, yeah, and also can we say what the equivalent is as well? Because I was thinking, is the equivalent Pan? Because Pan was demonized by the Catholic Church, and what would the equivalent symbolic nature of this being represent? I'd love to get into that.
Well, in India, it's Ganesha. It's Ganapati. There's a story about how Ganapati protects the sacred wisdom even from Shiva. Shiva wants to come and see Parvati when she's bathing, and Shakti, and she asks her son Ganesha to guard her, and Shiva comes and he wants to see her naked, and Ganesha says, no one may see my mother naked, the divine mother. You shall not pass, even though you are my father. And Shiva chops off his head and goes, and Parvati hits the roof, turns into the Mahakali. And Shiva goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm sorry. I will get the next animal's head that passes and put it onto your son and restore him. So Shiva waits. The next animal to come is an elephant. He removes the elephant's head. He puts it onto Ganesha. This is why Ganesha has an elephant head. This is the story. Ganesha is the protector of sacred wisdom and sacred knowledge that is represented by Parvati. Now, in the Tibetan equivalent, like I just pointed out, the Dorje Shugden is the protector of the Dharma. And he has a baleful element. This is why the elephant, the Ganesha, is what removes the obstacles, if there is an obstacle to truth, Ganesha will remove it, even if it's a person.
Interesting. So in both images, there's a little mouse. Of course, Ganesh is shown with a mouse, and so is the other guy. Is it
exactly?
Yeah, and then it sort of reminds me a little bit of like Pegasus as well, like the white horse, and perhaps this is related to the etheric body as well, like the structure, hence the fire outside of the body. Because how I can relate this to what's going on right now is that it seems that it's the etheric body that these vampires want to sink their teeth into, because that's our connection to the aether. That's how we get our life force and our energy. And the reason I bring up Pegasus is because that guy is riding a white dragon, which kind of reminds me of a white horse, and Ganesha symbolizes intellect, wisdom, the ability to overcome challenges, remove of obstacles, and sort of initiator of beginnings. So it's a very fresh energy, which to me screams intuition and imagination. And I believe that we get that from the ether, from the aether. So that's very, very interesting. That kind of relates to what's going on at the moment, because both the dragon and the horse are sort of I think that you've called it Pegasus before when you're talking about dragons. When you were talking to Stein, you said the Pegasus when you guys were talking about dragons, and this whole thing of like, so for example, Saint George slaying the dragon. He also rode a white horse. But what I see our etheric body as, our life force, our chi, our prana, is our dragon energy, which is how we kind of which is what drives us through the world. And if we don't have this, if we're not able to take flight, you know, and like the dragon is kind of, I view it as a snake, connection to the earth being the feminine, the snake being intuition, wisdom, and then the eagle as well, representing the mind, foresight, to rise above. But so this is the bridge. So the eagle is the mind, the snake is the body, but it's the connection of the two. It's the union of these two opposites, the heart and the mind. When they're both in balance, that's dragon energy. And this is why there's so much done to disrupt our nervous system. Like the vagus nerve connects the heart and the brain, and we have Las Vegas, of course, and you know that's where blue light originates from, the mafia and the CIA. Do you know, I keep mentioning this in chats, but I need to get the documents because like people need to see. Well, some people are like, all right, show me proof. So I need to find that again. But the CIA worked with the mafia to see how they could easily manipulate people. And they started off using wires in the brain, but then they found that blue light actually makes people docile and more susceptible to following orders. And it's everywhere. LED lighting there was a huge surge of it, especially in the UK in 2020. And the color for that year was blue. And that's like a huge step of Operation Bluebeam, because it's this blue light that kind of drains us. Does it drain our etheric body? I don't know. Probably. Who knows? But it certainly does drain us, because when kids are on screens, they're glued to them. There is the flashing images, the like changing frame rate and stuff, but there's also the blue light, because blue light's magnetic. This is why red light's healing, and this blue light kind of draws us in. We have it during the day so that we stay kind of vigilant, focused on the world around us. But my point is, I'm trying to make with this is that these protectors of, or guardians, let's call these gods, Ganesh and stuff, guardians of dimensions, and that this dimension, the one which bridges the heart and the mind, bridges spirit and matter, this kind of obstacles, one being Ganesha, related to wisdom, because it's with wisdom that we're able to bridge worlds, bridge realities, bring spirit into matter. And that is what this whole AI, artificial, CIA, Mossad, whatever, monetary system, whole false matrix is all about. It's about putting its foot in the doorway that we have, because we're all channelers. We can channel spirit into matter. We're creators. We can manifest and bring unimaginable things into this world with our imagination. And this is what this AI and this blue light, blue beam is all about, is basically trying to alter our thoughts so that we're transhumans. There's transhumanism, which is also transhumans. They just want us in a trance, docile. So this is why these guardians of dimensions are so important. That kind of help dissolve obstacles and give us fresh insight and fresh perspectives. So it's very, because I know a little bit about Ganesha. The other guy you mentioned and you've been talking about, never heard of him before you mentioned him, but it's interesting to sort of find the common thread of these deities or guardians of dimensions, and then relate it to what's happening currently as well in the matter, in the material, because we're powerful creators, but we can be manipulated, we can be coerced. There's so much done to, like, for example, map the human brain. Since the 70s, they've been able to alter brain waves via radio waves. We think like this, our mind is not in here, our mind is out there. We're in the mind. The mind is spirit and soul. We're part of the world soul. We're all part of the one spirit. We have our individual frequencies. And with this, what's called our mind, our brain, this is how we process things. This is how we tap into and get out of the mind beyond the firmament, and how we channel things into reality. And if they're able to map this, copy it, put it into AI, then they're able to bring things into this realm. And it means in turn that, like, but basically what it comes down to is order versus disorder. We can bring things into this world, like, which is kind of chaotic. Humans are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not very predictable sometimes, especially if you're so-called neurodiverse, ADHD, autism, dyslexic, problem child, whatever. You're not reading from the script. They want everyone reading on the script. So this is a trickle-down effect, because it's not just to do with like our bodies and our nervous system and even our brains. It's more beyond that. It's the psyche, which is literally means mind or spirit or soul. And the psyche is really what they're trying to manipulate. Like, you can picture it as like strings, and they're trying to get everybody being uniformed, whether it's a Dalai Lama, other assets for these families, like controlling the CIA and Mossad and stuff. The star says humans are programmable. They want humans to be programmable. So in the 70s, there's a patent. I'll try and get the number up. It's on my phone. I'll find it in a minute. From the 70s, a patent for altering human brainwaves via radio frequency. That was 56 years ago. This whole AI, this artificial, it's not to benefit us. Some people still think it is. It's not. You're deluded if you think it's to benefit us. The way this AI is working is that it's trying to extract from us to replace us. That's why they're trying to map the human brain via Apple AirPods. Apple have a patent for that. Apple have a patent to map the human brain. Why are they trying to map the human brain? Because this new world order, they want to stop the disorder. And they call it, if you're thinking outside of the box, they say you have a disorder and that is bad. Disorder is good. You know, we spoke about Eris. Obviously, there's Hecate, there's Lilith. All of these like goddesses representing the feminine, they've been demonized because they call out the authority. You know, any figures that call out authority, we've been basically gaslit for a long time. That I'll use Christ as an example. He spoke out and he was crucified, but he died for our sins. So don't worry about that. So now everybody's just an autopilot, waiting for him to return, just waiting for a savior. Now they've actually put Trump in his place to be like, Trump's going to be the savior. Right. But at the same time, we have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the first horse, the white horse, is both the Christ and the Antichrist. Well, what's going to happen is that the Antichrist is going to be playing the role of the Christ. And I think people know by now that this Christ isn't external, it's internal, it's inside us, and now we're all the saviors. But what they've done is they've gaslit us and made us think that savior is coming from outside of us. Well, it's not. It's inside all of us. And that's what this whoever was it, the Dalai Lama, has gaslit people into not connecting with this deity. So I'll stop rambling now, but Yeah, pass the mic over while I can.
No, brother, what you're saying makes total sense. And I, when you were saying, I was getting an image. You talk about all the evil that's been done by the Catholic Church. What did the Catholic Church do? It removed all the Gnostic Christian churches. It removed all of the challenging churches the same way, demonized them the same way Dorje Shugden was demonized, right? In order to get a unified church that was under the control of one person, the Pope, right or wrong. So whenever you have that pyramid structure forming, you got to take a look at what's going on. And I just wanted to share this. I mentioned it earlier, and I figured it's worth mentioning here just so you guys can see. Just so you know, I'm not making up stuff, right? He has stayed at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, Hotel Beacon, Park Hotel, 57th Street in Manhattan. So like these are all the most grandest hotels around, right? Just to be fair with you guys, the Dalai Lama doesn't travel cheap. Anybody that thinks he travels cheap like a monk, think again. He's a politician, and he travels first class, and he travels in style. That's how, and he's traveling all the time to all these important functions with all these important, powerful people, rubbing shoulder with all the bankers. Another thing I want to say as well, the Dalai Lama has supported transhumanism. He has literally been the face of the 2045.com movement. I know because I researched this decades ago. Please, people, go do your homework. Look at how Dalai Lama's position, what his position is on transhumanism. He doesn't believe that it's an affront to Buddhism, that people want to have their bodies unalived and turned it into robots and being turned into cyborgs so that they can live longer. That he has no problem with that. In fact, he has said publicly that he would sign up to be one of the first people to get that new body, the robot body, and have his consciousness transferred into a different body. So you got to understand, we're dealing with a transhumanist here, a transhumanist that, and I just wanted to share one other thing as well, with regards to what we were just talking about now, right? And I think it's really relevant. What the Catholics did, and like you said, this whole Christian order, we see the same thing happening here. Remember, I mentioned the 4 schools in Buddhism. They are the Nyingma, the Kagya, the Sakya, and the Gelug. And he has basically taken all 4 of these schools and condensed them into a single, right? And to overcome sectarianism. Wow, isn't that lovely words? What does that mean? Let me decode that for you. What that means is sectarianism meant that there were checks and balances. Technically speaking, having a cabinet of politicians rather than a king is sectarianism. Just having one person who's the boss, who's in control, that's not sectarianism, just to be clear. So he's now the boss of Buddhism, and he can say what the Mahayana Buddhism is. Before, he wasn't the absolute boss. He was merely the manager of these 4, but they all 4 had independent opinions and independent ideas and ideologies that were allowed. Now he gets to decide what isn't allowed for everybody. So we're talking about a Mussolini, a Hitler, the kind of notion of somebody who's like totalitarian in the state. Maybe not Hitler, I don't know about Hitler, but let's say Mussolini, let's say Stalin. This is what we are dealing with in a modern day equivalent. And he did it for the sake of religious harmony. That's another way of saying that he didn't want people contradicting him or having opinions different to his. He wants one opinion that everybody shares. It sounds like Catholicism to me, right? And everybody that doesn't agree, well, you'll be demonized. And this is sort of what we saw happening there. And I wanted to get into the whys of what happened as well. So the Dalai Lama, firstly, and it's important to know, just for the clarity for people that want to know the facts, so you can go look it up for yourself. I'm not making this up. He was ordained in 1987 by the Dalai Lama. So the Dalai Lama made this guy that he's demonized a priest, right? But when this guy challenged the Dalai Lama, he was no longer accepted, right? So we can see what's going on here, right? I'll make you a priest as long as you do what I tell you. Oh, you're not going to agree with me. Well, you're no longer part of my order. And my order is expanded into all 4 orders, and I'm now the only order that exists. This is really what's happened. And another thing I think that's important for us to sort of grasp, right, is that the Dalai Lama actually did specifically train in Dorje Shugden. In fact, when the Dalai Lama was rescued, and this is quite important, right? When he was rescued, before his exile in 1959, Dalai Lama was initiated into this, right? He wrote the Yellow Book in 1976, where he was pushing propaganda of stories of how Dorje Shugden punished Gelugpa practitioners who mixed their practice with other Tibetan Buddhist traditions, right? And so basically these people wanted to keep their Buddhism the way they wanted it to be. But he was trying to enforce his ideas and his practices onto them. And they were like, we've got our own form of Buddhism. This is what we want to do. And so he started writing this book of stories that would basically be of how the Dorje Shugden is going to punish all those people because they don't want to mix their practices with other practices from other traditions. And so the religious rights of religious freedom has been an issue since the late 70s. And so that's quite important for us to just get a bit of a handle on. Yeah. And I also think that he gave up his role as the head of the Central Tibetan to strengthen the democratic process, but he's still in control, right? It's like the Queen. She gave up her role in Parliament, but Crown Prosecution Services, the Queen. The courts, the Queen. The judges, the Queen. Who decides what laws get passed in court? The Queen, right? But she's got like a couple of people up there, phonies, that will dance around and pretend that they are there for the people, by the people. But at the end of the day, the money talks. Who's got the money? The Queen. Who controls a lot of financial power in the UK? The Queen's got big stakes. The huge super corporations, they have to be eating out of the Queen's hand, right? If the Queen wants them to lose their license, it will happen. So it's the same idea in the UK. The Queen has got more power. We like to think of the Queen as just somebody who sits in the castle. No. There's a lot going on there.
Sausage Fingers is in charge now. The Queen sadly died a few years ago. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting because like you think of this, her legacy still being around. That's what I think of, because like she's still the legacy of England. Like they still have this powerful, what can you call it? It's like a kind of a devotion. It's almost a religious devotion, isn't it, for the royal family? And Sausage Fingers, I think, has blown his load, right? In fact, a lot of what happens with Princess Di and with there's been so many scandals, and with the children touching the ring that was busted up by the Queen's butler. So all of this has really left a bad stain. And I don't think Sausage Fingers has, I think he's just a face. I think the women are in control. I think there's a woman backstage behind him, because it's always been that way, hasn't it? For a long time.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to. So Macron's wife is an example. Like apparently she's not a woman. She's a man, and it's quite funny because like, it wouldn't surprise me if, yes, there are women, but those women are actually men in disguise. That would be a twist in the plot. Macron's wife, I think, did she marry him at when he was 15 or something. Anyway, she's definitely his handler, but is she a he? Who knows? But yeah, in regards to who's controlling things, I mean, yeah, it's weird. I think the Trump seems to have more sort of sway over the royal family, because I watched a video of his last visit and he walked in front of them, in front of Charles or something, which kind of proves that he has more authority. But does Trump have authority? Like, Trump's just a puppet. He's a figure. He's a scapegoat. He's going to get shot soon. Sorry, not shot. He's going to get sent to Valhalla or wherever Charlie Kirk went to, or wherever everyone goes to. And then JD Vance is going to get in power, because these people are, like, slightly off topic, but politicians are put in power to see what they can get away with, push the Overton window one way, and someone else will swoop in. Like, JD Vance is in like peace talks and stuff with Iran, and he's kind of doing things differently to Trump. And then Trump's going to be thrown under the bus because Trump has a lot of hate, and people are going to be like, oh yeah, great, JD Vance, he's going to be our savior. But he was funded by Peter Thiel, Palantir. Like, that's the way we're going. And then people want Keir Starmer out, and the people that they want to replace him, Farage or whoever else, these people have links to like technocrats, to technology. This is where it's going. We're going exactly, or like we're being steered exactly where the archons, the rulers, manipulators want us to go. And all of these puppets are all distractions. And the royal family, yeah, it's a bit like a cult. Like, people, like, I don't understand. Like, we pay so much of our money to the royal family, and they have so much money. Like, how are people not angry about that? How are people not angry that he was best friends with Jimmy Savile for years, and they knew what he was up to? Like, people should know, even if people are told that they're all pedos. But people seem to not care. I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance with people. A lot of cognitive dissonance.
You know, it's interesting because, like, just to come back to it, you're right. His connection with Savile, and this is a typical thing. Like how many times is the Dalai Lama mentioned in the Epstein files? And how many times is it mentioned in emails that Epstein is now, he's coming to my ranch this weekend. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be doing this. He's doing a talk for us. So, but according to his worshippers, he never went there. But of course, you know, he flies around in his private jet and stuff, and who knows where he goes when he commissions these private jets, and does his whatever he does when he's not hanging out in these 5-star expensive hotels. But there's a lot of references to him coming on a lot of different occasions over the years, which, why would they be talking about, oh, you're coming to the Dalai Lama event on my island on Saturday? Yeah, I'm hoping to come. What time is it? Oh, he's going to be starting the talk at about 2, and then we're gonna hang out. We're gonna have some food, and you know, this is like email conversation between people, and it happens repeatedly. Many people discussing this hanging out with the Dalai Lama. How could he have not been there? Why would they be having emails between each other, falsely talking about the Dalai Lama coming there when he's not coming? It doesn't add up. I'm sorry. So you're right. You know, this association with Epstein, with so many of our political heads, right? With so many people in power, with so many people that have religious positions, right? That were connected to Epstein, and they all tried desperately to, and others that were closely aligned with him, that were connected to all these other people. So I think there's a big story there. I wanted to get into why the Dalai Lama banned it. So he was initiated into Shugden, right? There's a story about how he had a vision of Dorje Shugden, and it left him scared and shaken when he was younger. Yeah. And apart from the sectarian thing, so there's a political element. But the spirit of Dorje Shugden is supposed to protect the Dharma. If you aren't pure and you aren't worthy, and you try and get into the sacred knowledge, the occult power knowledge, then the Dorje Shugden spirit is supposed to prevent you and make you afraid. This is a role of Ganapati. This is something that people don't know. Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, right? But if you try and remove obstacles that you're not ready to remove, you will experience the terror that comes with opening psychic faculties before you're ready, right? People have this when they take too many psychedelics to remove the obstacles of their mind, and they have a bummer trip, right? And they experience like absolute terror, and sometimes people don't come back from this. This is Dorje Shugden. This is Ganapati. This is Ganesha. So it's like important to understand this connection. And I think when we look at it in context, the impurity of the person is what I would be observing, why this person is so scared of the spirit. It seems he's actually afraid of Dorje Shugden. And I think with great cause, because this is like in the Bible, they speak about the fear of God, right? That fear of God, that's Dorje Shugden. That fear of God can manifest with Ganesha and Ganapati. If you aren't ready to walk that path, that's what's going to hold you back. That will become, so even though Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, he is the fundamental obstacle, which is interesting to those that aren't ready to be initiated into the high. So like just looking at the way in which the occult has been sort of shaped around us now in the new age, and how many new age crazy people there are in the new age movements that we see losing their plot, right? A lot of that seems to be because there's been this, the Golden Dawn wanted to standardize the Kabbalah, the Hermetic Kabbalah, right? They changed stuff. Many organizations changed stuff. Aleister Crowley came and changed stuff even more. And so there's constantly been this corruption of sacred knowledge in the West. We see the same thing in the Tibetan schools here with the Dalai Lama. This was why, by the way, Dalai Lama is not allowed in Sri Lanka. Now, if you Google it, they'll say he never went there for political reasons, but I can tell you that's not the truth. And I can swear, like, as God is my witness, I was connected to the Nyakatera of the eastern province of Sri Lanka. There are 4 main monks they are the 4 leaders of Theravadan Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And I was very connected to this person. We used to spend a lot of time together because he wanted me to join his order. I had gone into a trance with him and I recited some ancient sutras that nobody knew. And so he really was trying to get me to join his order. And I was like, dude, it's just, I thought it was just telepathically that I was reading his unconscious and that the words were flowing from his mind to my mind out my mouth. But I don't really know. But anyway, point is, he shared with me, because I spoke to him, we had a translator come out. And he used to sit down with me, he used to speak for hours at a time with his translator, and then we would eat. We would go and sit down and eat. And he wanted to get to know me, and I spent a lot of time with this guy. He was a very beautiful, humble old man, and that was really, he had his own wisdom. And we did certain kinds of meditation work together and things as well, because he wanted to experience, like, who is this white guy that's living in the jungle in this cave? Because I was living in a cave of a Aharit, and an Aharit is one of the direct descendants of the descendants that were actually the students of Buddha. And why I had chosen that cave was really of importance to him. Of all the caves I could have chosen, I chose that cave. Nobody went near that cave ever because it was so sacred. But here this white guy comes and so he reckoned there must be a synchronism, right? A reason why I lived in that cave. And so I remembered like past lives and stuff while I was there of that tradition that I worked in. And what he disclosed with me when I asked him about the Dalai Lama, because I'd said to him I never felt comfortable about the Dalai Lama's energy. And this is one of my fundamental issues with Buddhism. He said to me, and I'm going to quote him, He said, we will never allow that man into this country. He will not be welcome here. His fake Buddhism isn't allowed in Sri Lanka. This is the reason. The reason the Dalai Lama never ever went to Sri Lanka was because those that were in charge of Buddhism in Sri Lanka despised him. They thought that he was a fake and a fraud, and they would not have him come to their country. However, I want to be clear, right? And we're drawing a distinction here. So this is quite an important and a powerful distinction to draw, right? And I think it's relevant because this guy, right? This guy, let's be clear about it. This Rinpoche guy that was so demonized, him, right? There's his picture. He went to Sri Lanka and he spent time in Sri Lanka on a hermitage. And he went to the sacred sites where the Buddha had gone. The Buddha went to Sri Lanka. He spent time there. There's a historical account of Buddha being in Sri Lanka. He did a pilgrimage to follow all the sacred places where the Buddha went. The Buddha's footprint is up on the top of Sri Pada in Sri Lanka, for example. It's one of the very important places. The Dalai Lama is not allowed to go there because he's not welcome there because of the way that he has behaved is not Buddhist. There's not that they don't want him there because of his philosophy or his ideology. He's not allowed there because of the way that he has behaved towards people. And this was disclosed to me by the head monk of the Eastern Province, one of the 4 main Buddhist people in Sri Lanka, directly. And he assured me that the Dalai Lama will never come to this country. He says he will not be allowed here after the way he has behaved in Tibet, after the things he has done. We will not have him here. He's a fake Buddhist. So this is why you will find that the Dalai Lama doesn't go to Sri Lanka, never has gone, and probably never will go until there's some kind of a reformation of the Buddhist monks and they lose their whatever. But and I'm wondering about Thailand. I don't know if he's gone to Thailand. I don't have experience. I never lived in Thailand, but I did spend time there, and I spent a lot of time going to a place called Kudumbigala. And Kudumbigala was where I met this Nayakatera, who was I didn't have a visa for Sri Lanka. I lived there for 2 years on a 1-month visa, and I was going to leave the country the day before the tsunami. And he had said to me, the time you want to leave, here's a phone number. He just wrote a phone number on a piece of paper and a name in Sinhalese. He said, keep this piece of paper safe. When it's time to leave, give this to the people at the airport. I gave it to the guy at the airport. They freaked out with me. Oh, you don't have a visa. You've lived here for 2 years. This is a big problem. They went off to the back. They made a phone call. They came back. They stamped my passport. They said, have a good day. No black stamp, no problem. So these head monks have got a lot of political power within Sri Lanka, by the way, as well. I think maybe just because they are like considered the divine embodiment of Buddhism. So they are the equivalent of the Dalai Lama but I spent a lot of time with this man, and he was a gentleman. He was a very gentle, he was very understanding. There was something quite beautiful about this man's heart, which was why I spent time with him, because there was something quite spiritual about him. But anyway, I don't want to get into that whole Sri Lankan story. I don't want to hijack it. But to get back to the point here that I think is quite important is the loss of sectarianism into a single pyramid structure of religion, especially where that religion has got so much power over the state. This is why Sri Lanka still have, to this day, 4 separate monks, 4 separate districts, effectively 4 separate orders, so that there's no one person in control, right? All 4 people have to be in agreement for anything to happen, right? It's really important that the balance of power is there. When you have a pyramid, you have a very small point of power at the top of that pyramid. You need to have this kind of balance. Like if you're in a space where one person takes charge, and I think this is why we will find so many brainwashed people out there that will defend the Dalai Lama even after he did this tonguing, where he tongued a child in public. Who would get away with tonguing a child in public other than somebody who's deified? And they actually make excuses for him, saying that it was a great honor for the child.
Yeah, well, we can see the same with Trump being deified and being in the files, etc. and stuff. I need to go pick Ori up from school in a second. I just want to share a few tabs, especially for the star, in regards to what I was talking about earlier. So let me zoom in on this. So this is the patent number. If anyone wants to copy that, 1974. Apparatus for and method of sensing brain waves at a position remote from a subject, whereby electromagnetic signals of different frequencies are simultaneously transmitted to the brain of the subject, in which the signals interfere with one another to yield a waveform which is modulated by the subject's brain waves. So that's a patent from the 70s. And this is a patent, if anyone wants to copy this number down, from Apple. Apple has filed several patents exploring the use of AirPods to monitor human brain activity. Okay, so they're basically, I'm not going to read it all out. Right, look at the patent, go look at it yourself. It's basically to map the human brain. It says the purpose is the technology is intended to monitor health indicators, including sleep cycles, seizure detection, and early signs of neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia. Yeah, it's always beneficial at first, this technology, until they want to map your brain. And then MIT are creating brainless human clones. So they're creating brainless clones and they're mapping the human brain. It sounds to me like they're trying to create humans that they can manipulate and control by mapping the brain, implanting it into another clone, creating AI wombs, you know. So, and then I just want to show you these tabs of 1970s Project Stargate, which was to do with remote viewing and ESP. Because now we have Stargate Project. So what they've done is they've taken Project Stargate, which was about remote viewing, ESP, extrasensory perception, and now they've swapped the wording, and they've said it's they've called it what would they call it? Stargate Project, which is basically an OpenIA and Oracle like technology thing. It's to basically map the human brain. It's to get to the in between, the liminal, where we bring spirit into matter, our thoughts, the force that's around us, and how we create, because that's chaotic to them. That's chaos. They want to know exactly what we're thinking, what we're doing at all times. This ties into the whole track tracing, 15-minute cities, why there's so much AI and artificial and stuff being pushed on us. And it's always done. It's always said it's like to benefit us, like Neuralink for people who are paralyzed. That's why they're saying. That's why Mr. Beast is talking about that. But, you know, if you look further ahead and what their plan is for this kind of digital, what they call a utopia, where there's going to be machines everywhere, it's not for our benefit. I'm just going to share two more tabs briefly. And sorry, I have to do this really quickly, but I've got to go in a sec. Do you want to? Yeah, it's fine. Oh, okay. Okay. Right. I don't have to go in a sec. So I found out recently that Pluto's atmosphere is going to be frozen and disappear by 2030. So why this is interesting is because 2019 was the beginning of this solar cycle, soul cycle. 2030 is the end of this solar cycle. It goes on an 11-year cycle. So 2019, what happened there? That was the start. 2030 is the end of this cycle. Okay. And it's interesting that they say 2030 is the year that Pluto's atmosphere is going to freeze over and disappear, because Pluto represents the subconscious. And it's our subconscious that we need to tap into and work with, because it's the subconscious which basically runs the program. Like 95% of what we are is subconscious, like our breathing and stuff like that. But also it's related to our behaviors as well. And this is where we can be manipulated. So it's interesting that it says this is going to be frozen over. To me, that represents we're not going to have access to that. Where I'm going with this is by the year 2030, after this soul cycle, after this manipulation of the psyche, which is another name for the soul, which is the mind, which isn't in here, it's all around us. It's the all is mind, the all is mental. That we're going to see further manipulations up until 2030, and they want us to not be able to access the subconscious. So they're saying it will be frozen over. Maybe there'll be fear, maybe the fear of the subconscious, because we already have a lot of fear of the unknown, fear of the dark, fear of tapping into this. That's where we store all of our trauma and stuff. So where I'm going with this is that what's happening with this, our ESP, extrasensory perception and stuff, it's been weaponized and used against us, because that's our magic. We have the formless, which is where everything's from, the spirit, and then we have the morphing, the changing, which is where the magic happens, and then we have the form, the structure and matter. And it's this morphing which we need to be able to use, how we can bridge spirit into matter, the formless into form. And so this like rabbit hole, whatever. I don't really like the term rabbit hole. I prefer stream, because a rabbit hole can seem quite dark and deep, and there's a kind of like
if you were talking about Uranus, I'd be talking about another hole, but we're talking about Pluto.
Well, yeah, we are talking about ourselves for sure. We're talking about ourselves. But, these ourselves are sort of the ones outside of us, not inside of us. But yeah, I'll pass the mic.
I was listening to a lot of what you were saying, and really on point.
Sorry, got a bit distracted.
Beautiful discovery you made there. Sorry, I'm just trying to manage this little guy, and I can't manage him because he's not listening. There we go. This is hot charcoal. Okay, I've got to put him on the ground. I've got frankincense in my hand. I've got a little guy who wants to jump on the hot charcoal. There we go. And so what I discovered, and it's interesting that you mentioned the CIA connection, right? Which is obviously like mind control, right? PSYOP. I think a lot of our religious leaders have been PSYOPed, like the people like the Pope, the Dalai Lama. I believe that this technology that we're speaking about has already been implemented. And I just wanted to show you people evidence and receipts of just what we're dealing with. Our religious leaders. So let's think of the most influential religious leader in the world. That is the Dalai Lama, I think, without a doubt. He's far more influential than the Pope, because a lot of Christians don't acknowledge the Pope. It's only the Catholics, right? And they're a shrinking group. But the Dalai Lama has got a huge affiliation all around the world. New Agers love him. Buddhists love him. Hindus, many Hindu people, because he's really had like the best. What do they call those people that work for Hollywood stars? Publicists. he's had the best publicists working for him to maintain his public opinion, image, right? So the guy has been represented like basically like Jesus. And so here's where it gets interesting, right? I mentioned the connection with Dalai Lama and the Avatar project. Now, I want you guys to look here and to see, just to be clear, 2045.com dialogue, right? And just to be clear, that's the dialogue. So we're going to now go to 2045.com. And just so you can see what we are doing, what the site is for those that don't know, right? This is literally what you were talking about. The brain infrastructure, the technology, right? They notice here they got interfaith dialogue. You notice that? And the ideologies behind it, the experts, the technology, the rebrain, right? What you were talking about, the rebraining, robot avatars, right? So this is about the 2045 Avatar project. And these are the goals that they have here. Robotic copy of the human body we've already done that, by the way. You've seen them showcasing that at the Chinese games, remember? Those bodies are superior to physical bodies of strength and what they can do, somersaults, jumping, running. They can do pretty much, they can do Shaolin martial arts. They can do just about anything. Then the avatar in which the human brain is transplanted at the end of one's life. That's probably where we are close to now, if not there. Then the artificial brain with a human personality is transferred in at the end of one's life. So then one gets an artificial brain. And that artificial brain starts with cyborg. And then they have a goal of a hologram-like avatar. I'm not quite sure even what that means, but this is the mission. This is the mission, right? And the Dmitry Itskov is the founder. The roadmap, yeah, they've said the roadmap, yeah? Synthetic carriers of personality and consciousness. It's all about basically, it's about unifying humans and machines. That's really what it is. The manifesto that I have mentioned on occasions, right? Just to give you an idea of what the manifesto represents, to give us a clear idea. I've read this before. I won't go through the whole manifesto. But we've become a consumer product, and science is working to improve our lives, to make our physical bodies better. They're going to solve the problems of world hunger. They're going to solve the problems of resource problems, pollution. No problem. The air is polluted. You don't need lungs. We'll give you something without lungs. And the main objectives of this movement is to support the international community and create conditions for international cooperation of interested specialists around the 2045 initiative, which we know what it is. It's human and machine. To create an international research center for cybernetic immortality. Okay? That's what they're talking about, cybernetic immortality. To support innovative industries and creative special scientific education programs. I want us to read those words very carefully. For schools. This they've been doing. They've been doing this now for more than a decade, right? Universities and schools, these innovative programs for children becoming basically softened to the idea of transhumanism. To create educational programs for television. Educational programs for television, radio, and the internet, to hold forums, conferences, congresses, exhibitions, and establish award, produce books, movies, computer games, right? It's in the manifesto. They are going to use computer games, movies, books, TV series for television, radio, internet, forums, conferences, congresses, everything that they can do to raise the profile of the initiative and spread its ideas, right? So this is, they want to form a culture connected with the ideology of the future, promoting technical progress, artificial intellect, AI, multi-body, immortality, and cyborgization. It's in their manifesto, people. We don't have to guess who they are. We don't have to fantasize about who these guys are or what their mission is. Now, on the same website, 2012. Yes, I saw it in 2012 because I was researching transhumanism in 2012, because at that point I already knew that this is the future. This is the plan to enslave humanity. I knew it then. That was why when Bitcoin came, I never bought Bitcoin for moral, ethical reasons, even though I had money to buy it. Even though I knew it was going to make money, I did not want to be somebody who's funding the human race into this. So let's see what the Dalai Lama is. So there we can see there's a picture of the Dalai Lama, and there's that Russian guy, right? I think he's the CEO. And there he is, the plaque for transhumanism. They're holding it, right? The 2045 initiative has received the blessing and support from the Dalai Lama as it prepares to announce the second Global Future 2045 Congress. So this was back then. Dmitry Iskov, that's that guy there, the founder of the 2045, met His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, in his residence in Dharamsala, small town in the middle of the Himalayas, you could say, not too high. They discussed three major steps. So the Dalai Lama is part of this. He's part of the transhumanism. He has helped use his reputation for the last almost 1.5 decades to promote this. The reason we are being flooded with AI is because of people like the Dalai Lama using their huge influence in the world to make others accept ideas like this. Next, it be created a life support system, right? The third step is the Avatar C, developing artificial brain, understanding the human. So listen to what the Dalai Lama says. Creating the Avatar C through developing an artificial brain and understanding the nature of human consciousness, says the Dalai Lama. He's being quoted directly. There he is in the picture holding the plaque. Could be attainable and would be a great benefit to future development of science. Those are the Dalai Lama's words. In the last few years, scientists now begin to show an interest about consciousness, as well as brain specialists, neuroscientists who also begin to show interest about consciousness of mind. I feel that over the next decades, modern science will become more complete, says the Dalai Lama. So up to now, the matter side of science has been highly technical, highly advanced, but the mind side has not been adequate. The project definitely is helpful to get more knowledge. That is the Dalai Lama's words. This is what I've read now is his statement. Several months ago, DARPA, right? So the Dalai Lama is involved with this organization that's involved with DARPA. I want you guys to recognize the gravity of what we're discussing here. This is why I'm not a Dorje Shugden follower. This is why I've been keeping a beady eye on the Dalai Lama for the last 15 years, almost, because I know what he's about. When I saw him become the face of this organization spiritually, I realized who he was and what side of the fence he was standing on. He has Itzkov talking about how his vision is, and he wants to enhance life for those. The Dalai Lama has the important part, agreed that it is crucial to discuss the ethics behind these types of progressive technologies. We should carry out these experiments with a full sense of responsibility and respect for life. Now, I want to ask you people, where do you think all those 8 million children that disappear every year go? What do you think happens to them?
Well,
You think it's all just pedophiles?
there's a lot of McDonald's in America. Way more. They create way more burgers than there are cows.
But what do you think happens to the children before that? They've got underground bases all around the world. Stories about children disappearing into tunnels in California that go down into underground bases. Do you think they have underground bases where they are doing tests to make? Do you think this is an easy thing to achieve? Or do you think you're going to need like millions and millions of test subjects?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's probably the same people that want to block out the sun are doing this because that's why they're underground. And I'm going to say they're vampires because vampires don't like the sun. Vampires have to be invited in, and the children are much more easily manipulated. Children have a connection to other realms and stuff, which is sometimes lost when we get to adulthood. That's why they're doing experiments on kids and twins as well. There was a Nazi scientist, can't remember his name, but doing experiments on twins because they want to. These people, like, are they even people? This is like it. I can't really call them people because I don't know if they're people. It doesn't seem. There seems to be there's certainly an unhuman agenda here. It's very clear. Like, for example, in regards to nuclear power, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying that basically with AI, open AI and stuff like that, there's a 20% chance that it could wipe out humanity, this AI. And the reason nuclear power is so dangerous is because there's a 1% chance or a less than 1% chance that the nuclear facility could blow or whatever. So that's why we don't have nuclear power, and that's why there's so much fear over nuclear power. I find it interesting because it seems that if there's a 20% chance that humanity could be wiped out, which seems to be the whole point in AI, it's not like, oh, it could be. That is the end game. That is the result, to replace humans, to at least make us less human. And the scales of robots, machines, digital, artificial versus nature, humanity, pure potential, the digital, the scales are going like that, and humanity is being degraded. That's certainly happening now, for sure. And I think that children are the key to tipping the scales. And that's why there's probably such a push for saying that children have ADHD or autism and putting them on chemicals. The same with trans and confusing children, getting them on drugs for life, distorting the matter and stuff, because they are the ones which are going to. Hi, Ori.
I'm going to.
Yeah, man. The children are our future. Hello, Ori. I hope you're behaving. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah, I think it's I think what you're saying is so on point. But please carry on, brother.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that. I mean, we were speaking about it before, and I think Cosmic brought it up. But like with machines and algorithm and this kind of digital opposed to nature, is that our minds are so much more powerful than we're told it is, and that we can actually alter reality with our minds, with our psyche. This is what they're afraid of, because if we have this digital future which they're trying to force on us, it's not natural. It's not a natural path. Perhaps on one timeline when we were more wise and sort of more in tune with nature, it could happen, but it's being forced upon us. But the human mind can override this sort of linear kind of digital artificial sort of, like, they want to put us all into the same box. But the thing is, with our minds, we're sort of like, what am I trying to say is that we have an effect on reality that they don't want us to have. This is why they want to dumb us down in all possible ways. And it's they can't just do it with a flick of a switch. It has to be done by indoctrination, by disrupting our nervous system, the food, the water, the air we breathe, so much, you name it, a lot. There's a long list, and they're not able to. And very shortly, I'm going to share some interesting stuff in regards to things that have happened recently in the UK, which kind of, to me, proves this.
Yeah, what you're saying is so on point. I think the very experience of physical matter is an expression of the field of consciousness. And what we're experiencing in matter is consciousness. And that consciousness is the foundations of matter. And it is matter that we're experiencing in a crystallized form. And the crystallized form of matter that we call physical reality is just a pattern that we've constructed in our minds for how we will choose to experience this field of consciousness. And so hence we have more control over this field of consciousness than what we realize, which is matter. And this is like the foundations of occult power, the city, magic. This is why we are able to entrain our surroundings to follow and be in conformation with our will, why manifestation is possible. And, this transhumanist agenda is an affront. Like you say, they want to separate us from this experiential knowledge that consciousness is, and they want to create an army of AIs. I want to point out one thing. The AI has become like massively developed since the last 15, 20 years, right? How many people have disappeared? How many children have disappeared? I wonder, and this is a speculation, but my instincts are usually quite good. Like, I knew there was a tsunami coming in 2 days, and I got on a plane, right? My instincts say that the AI has been constructed with code drawn from human brains. But the experiments on those human brains, in order to get that code out of the brain, destroyed those human brains. And you talk about McDonald's, right? I think there's a correlation and a connection you have for how do you get rid of the evidence? How do you get rid of the evidence for millions of human brains being experimented on? Small human brains, and then all of the rest of the bodies. What do you do with it? The little bodies would be more tender. I want you to just take a moment for this. It would probably be a very much like mutton. It would probably smell and taste like mutton. Just so you know what you're eating. If it tastes like mutton, it might not be mutton. And they mix many meats in together to make these kind of minces that they make these days. But anyway, food for thought. I do think that there seems to be some correlation here with all of these points that we're bringing together. These data sets seem to match. And, looking at these massive missing children, all these secret bases that they won't allow us to know about or talk about, but people have seen, people know. I discovered a secret base in Loughton. How do I know it's there? I noticed that in Loughton there was a train station and a tube station that had been abandoned. Then I went back and I did my research. into that train station, what had happened? Not Loughton, sorry. The other side, the end of the Northern Line in London. Right? When you go past West, not the Northern Line, the end of the Jubilee Line. If you go to the end of the Jubilee Line, Watford has an old station. And I looked at it and I noticed, and I could psychically deduce that there was something down there using my remote viewing, let's just say. And I explained to my ex-wife, there's something down there. And I did research. What did I discover? There were correlations. They spent a lot of work working underneath in those tube stations. They did more work than they should have. There were more materials used than what they should have had. Do you understand what I'm saying? The contractors, there was more money spent than what they should have spent to build the place that they supposedly built. And at the same time, there were decommissioned tube stations down there, locked away. You can't get in there. I went to the place to go and see if you can get access to the tube station. It's been locked, been closed off, metal doors. Like, there must be like, I don't know, 2-3 inch thick metal blast doors, right? And latched from inside, as well as bolted. And like, there's no way you can get in there unless you get like severe cutting tools. So anyway, in this Watford area, I did a lot of research and I realized that there was evidence, a smoking gun, that they had done more work down there than what justified on the books. And a lot of people had questioned, politicians and financial people had questioned the amount of resources and money used to do the work that they didn't add up. And there was question marks. So anyway, there is evidence of these secret places underneath the cities where you live. You just need to do your homework and you go and do your research. I think children are being abducted. I think they are being sold on a black market. I think they are being moved around in crates by Amazon and Google and, Facebook and what have you. And they are being shipped. And they are being put into containers in ships full of children, and they are being shipped to places where they have underground facilities to process these children, and they probably have underground transportation systems to get them to the underground facilities that they need to use them for testing. This is my feeling. And okay, this comes from remote viewing, so take it with a pinch of salt if you will. But if you start doing research into these underground facilities, there's more to it than what meets the eye. And there are actual digital footprints that you can find with regards to financial receipts and reports on the amount of building, and the amount of rubble removed doesn't add up with what they built, right? If you say you're building one house, but then the amount of materials that you bought was enough to build 10 houses, you're going to say, well, why did you buy 10 houses of material to build one house? Well, what happened? This is the kind of smoking guns you will find. And yeah, we need to be vigilant.
Yeah, man, exactly. Yeah, I'm just gonna say bye to Ez and Ori. So just give me 2 secs.
Yeah, so I think like we need to be awake, and we need to be paying like vigilant attention to exactly the kind of propaganda we're being. Bye-bye. Travel safe. Look after your mother. Look after your mummy. You're the boys now, yeah? Boys got to keep mummy safe. As you grow up, you get stronger. You'll be able to keep her safe properly. But yeah, the extent of brainwashing that we are finding in the spiritual community, in the New Age community. It's like when my little boy, he's 9 years old, when he goes out with his mom, I tell him, you got to keep your mom safe, buddy. You're the man now. I'm not there. You got to make sure that she's safe. So if anyone's like, he's like very protective over his mom when he goes out, which is really cute. But it's a good training for them. I don't know. What do you think, brother?
About what? Telling the little one to look after the mum?
Yeah, so that they get used to the idea, like looking after women, like no,
Yeah.
I'm the man. No one's gonna talk to my mom like that,
Yeah, no, man. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I just want to share this. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Where am I? Hang on. There we are. This tab. I just want to share this in regards to the human psyche, because really that's what we're talking about when we're talking about this AI and stuff. Is it wants to and the soul and spirit, because we think of the psyche, or people think of psychology as just like the mind, and the mind being the brain. Well, the mind is the spirit. Spirit and mind are synonymous, and the psyche comes from the Greek word means soul, spirit, or breath. And the breath and the wind and the mind is all around us, and this like Wi-Fi and like EMFs and stuff and 5G, 6G, whatever, can disrupt the signals that we get, that we can kind of tune into, like the sea all around us, the air all around us, the waves can get disrupted, and so therefore we can find it harder to sort of to expand our minds. There's a lot going on to kind of squash us in, and yeah, bear with me because I'm quite nasally, because I think I did have a sinus infection a few weeks ago, which I think I resolved, but I've now got a tooth infection, so I'm not feeling 100%. I'm very nasally, which is really annoying. So I hope people can hear me. I just want to share this newspaper article I saw the other day, which is from the 9th of April, so the beginning of the month. And it's in regards to OpenAI and Project Stargate in the UK, because it seems something has happened for OpenAI to not be expanding into the UK and building their infrastructure. And I think I know what that was. So it says OpenAI has apparently put their plans on pause, saying it would wait for the right conditions to enable long-term infrastructure and investment. Now, what happened at the beginning of the year is that they tried pushing Exercise Pegasus. They tried pushing a meningitis scare. They wanted people to it was basically what happened in 2020 again. They were pushing this script, this narrative. People didn't fall for it, so that fizzled away. So now they can't build the AI infrastructure because they needed people to sort of integrate with this artificial. Because it was called Exercise Pegasus. Exercise is movement. Exercise is about moving the body, but also it's to do with the psyche as well. And Pegasus is wisdom. It's sort of like mercurial sort of figure. It's the bridge of spirit and matter. Pegasus was the one that could fly from the earth to Mount Olympus, the realm of the gods. So this Pegasus, this in-between, this horse, the first horse of the apocalypse is white, which is Pegasus. That's the first horse, the first structure. Horse means structure or vessel. It is also related to the etheric body as well. This is what they're after. This is what they need to sink their teeth into. And they tried sinking their teeth into it. But like with vampires, you need to let them in. People didn't let them in. So therefore, that they're sort of the steps towards this AI, transhumanism, merging machines with humans, test and trace, tracking and tracing. This project fear, that's what it is. They need to push fear onto us to sink their teeth into the etheric body. And possibly the fear relates to the astral, the emotional body. They need to get through that first into us. And they weren't able to. So I literally saw this the other day, and I was like, right, okay, something's happened with their plans. What's happened? That's the only thing I can think of, is that people aren't so easily manipulated. There's a few other interesting things as well, like Meta losing £80 billion over the last few years because people don't want to go into the metaverse. People don't seem to want this digital future. People at the moment are quite content staying human. So there's a lot of reassuring things happening, that people aren't so easily swayed with this digital future, merging machines and humans. It is being pushed upon us. There's manipulation, yes. There's going to be a lot more psyops over the few years until the end of this soul cycle, 2030, when they want their reset to be, which won't be 2030, it'll be before. I mean, if you check on Google, search Google 2025, Google 2026, you can kind of see by the images of what's happening. 2027 is like the Christ and Antichrist. 2028 is a comet, which is supposed to hit the earth. Be 2028, 2029. And I can tell you now, that comet is going to be part of Project Bluebeam, which all of this is about. It's just detaching us from God, from source, from ourselves, so that these people, like whatever they are, can gain access to us and use us as vessels to build this artificial future. You look at the dollar bill, you can see A and I on that. That's AI, and it says "In God we trust." Or which God? But it's not source. It's something else. So for years we've been unwillingly building this digital infrastructure with giving our data away, like on Facebook, online. And the thing is, a lot of people don't seem to care. They're like, oh, so what? They can have my data. I don't need to hide it. Well, that's fine. But it's not just being used as a weapon against you. They're using it to create a digital you. And as they're creating a digital you, this ties into digital identity, because the identity is our soul, is our frequency. And what they want is they want us all on the same frequency, like all, if you look at us all as metronomes, all vibrating at the same frequency, so we're all exactly the same. There's no difference. That is the end game. And that is Araman, the kind of the we, the collective, kind of we're all the same. And Araman forced its way out of the womb. If you look at the story of Zaravan, Ahura Mazda, and Araman, and now what's happening is that this Aramanic force is trying to force its way into matter, and by this kind of digital infrastructure. So it's very interesting. If you look at the timeline, if you look at all the threads, all the weaves of the Dalai Lama, the Catholic Church, Trump, Elon Musk, OpenAI, what our government's doing, which no one voted for this artificial future. No one wants it. Most people don't want it. It's just happening because people aren't opposing it, because they're telling us that it could be in our benefit. So this AI is going to be the savior, the Christ. It's going to come back as machine form. But the thing is that Christ is actually the Antichrist, because the Christ, the Christos, is our inherent wisdom, is our consciousness. And that consciousness, like the conch shell, is a spiral, right? And it's the spiral our nature versus the square, the cube, the compressed energy. So this kind of consciousness alteration, manipulation, separation, sort of division of the subconscious and conscious mind, they put a wedge there so we can't access our subconscious, and that we're just kind of running on autopilot. But it's not us running. Like, you know, I've talked before about the higher self and us basically putting up a vacancy sign saying, you know, self for hire, because that's what a lot of people do. And you were talking about earlier about shamanism, stuff like that. It's like, how do we know, like, what forces people are connecting to? Because we're quite isolated in this day and age. We don't have many guides. People seek information online and stuff like that, which is fine, but it's very important to kind of decipher and dissect what's true and what's not. Like, people in the chat today have disagreed with some of the stuff we've been saying. That's fine, but they haven't stuck around long enough to actually listen to what we're saying. They're just like, for example, someone was like, this quantum mysticism were always so entertaining to me. The word salads, the scientific illiteracy.
I know who that was.
Yeah. Do you
know who that was?
No.
That was this guy. He used that same word when I was talking to him. This Yeshe Mantik guy. He likes the word salads. There's not many people who use those words like repeatedly, but this is like one of the mantras that he uses. It's something that people use when they don't like what you're saying. They'll just turn it into word salad. That's their easy, convenient, disregard what you're saying. But it is that guy. I can't find the exact place where he said it right now.
To be honest with you, did. Yeah, if you scroll up, it was 11 minutes past 3. But that might be my time, actually. It's not too far up. But in regards to word salad, quantum mysticism, is that even a thing? Like, I've searched what it is, but it seems that they're two opposites. Quantum and mysticism, that is a word salad, because you either have quantum, which is related to like mechanics, and then you have mysticism, which is the opposite of mechanics. So quantum mysticism woo, and even the word salad. I mean, salad isn't a bad thing. I mean, yeah, if you eat McDonald's, if you eat dead children all the time, you know, then
do you want to see word salad?
But you know,
there's some word salad on the screen. There's word salad. Look, here's word salad. I see your bush whispered very quietly on YouTube, and the comedy show attracted 8 people, rather more than I anticipated, I have to say. No, I wouldn't waste my time in discussion with you at all, having seen the sad cases who do and the desperate need to express yourself as some sort of spiritual mentor. You need to take your selective reading glasses off and that huge chip off your shoulder. Nick and I are trained by Tibetan and Nepali gurus, not books. I have had quite a few, being over 70. I did offer to give you a list if you also provided the lineage and the name of your own Himalayan guru who initiated you as a shaman. That is nothing secret at all. You did give me a laugh to see the desperation in your tone, having failed miserably to engage anyone else in this conspirational nonsense you were touting, and which I recognize almost word for word from the NKT of Shugden Bus. I've never read any work. I've never read anything. I don't even know that writing he's talking about. I've just met the Shugden people in London myself and spent time talking to them, like on occasions, because I was an activist and I felt compassion for the plight that their families were going through, and husbands had, separated from their children, and women had lost their husbands to what had happened, and they were persecuted. I'm not a fan of any institutional religions, but I value lineage training highly and pity those. So the lineage that this guy has is by that pedo guy who is selling transhumanism to the world, right? That's your lineage. Dude, you should be ashamed of your lineage. If I had a lineage like that, I would keep it a secret. I would not tell people that I'm related to that man, because you're more likely going to become something weird. Oh, listen to the word salad. Those who have deluded themselves that wandering about on the hippie trail and attending ashrams on a spiritual quest is training for anything. It isn't, except, of course, to be a cash cow for spiritual predators or to learn how to become one. I truly hope you find a real guru and some training if you have a potential to work with spirits, of course, and that is for them to decide. Nothing more to gain from this discussion. You see what I'm talking about by word salad? But this guy actually, he did use the word salad in a previous message. Where did he say it? He actually said word salads. He did say, he mentioned word salad at some point.
If it is the same person,
it is, guarantee, because he said word salad in 2 different comments. And I was like, interesting choice of words. And so he came on here, and he just mentioned now that he came on because I said we're going to do a live about this, and we're going to actually expose some information about the Dalai Lama so that you guys can come see for yourselves and get an opportunity to do some research. Hopefully they saw, and they're actually going to go look at the 2045.com and recognize that he has basically sold them out to transhumanism, and maybe that will be enough for them to wake up.
So this is a guy from like a group about the Dalai Lama. That's very interesting, because he says the word salads and then the scientific illiteracy. I mean, what's illiterate about showing information from a website? And like, it's not anything we've made up. We're literally showing their plan. But that's when you know somebody's fraudulent, because it's always like defending the science, and they're like scientific illiteracy. Oh, you don't understand the science behind it. It's like, we don't have to understand the science. We understand the human spirit and how the psyche operates and how they want to basically get rid of that. And you, as somebody who is possibly part of some spiritual practice, should also be opposed to the AI agenda, unless you're part of the agenda. And perhaps it's some kind of cult he's a part of, where they're all only allowed to think the same, you know?
That's what I called them out for. I called them out because they started talking about this thing being an evil spirit, and I pointed out to them, I said, listen, that sounds like propaganda to me, and that sounds like brainwashing, and it sounds like the kind of things that the Catholics did in like the Middle Ages. And I want you guys to recognize that you are in a cult. You are spreading cultish philosophies, culty ideologies, and a cult always has to demonize the people that challenge their authority. And the Dalai Lama is demonizing anybody that has challenged his authority within his domain, and persecuted everybody that followed those people that were demonized, and ensured that the law would protect his authority and his power. And that's like a heavy level of narcissism. And so is it a wonder that he's the face of transhumanism? Is it a wonder that he's going around sticking his tongue into children's mouths when they really don't want it? The video shows itself. Those of you that want to watch a video, please go and watch it. It's very obvious. I'm not going to show it here because I don't want YouTube to say that I'm using content that I'm not allowed to. Sometimes people but anyway, you got to be careful for infringement, because it's mainstream news. It was shown on television, I believe. Like, the video speaks for itself. But and it was in a public place. There were lots of witnesses. You can't hide this stuff. But this is like a classic example of this kind of brainwashing. You see, like, this guy came out here. The first comment he made is this, like, this deity is offering worldly success. Worldly success. No, the deity is not offering worldly success. It has nothing to do with worldly success other than in its form of Ganapati. Ganapati removes the boundaries that can free our energy to manifest. So in that way, yes, but the deity doesn't offer you money. It doesn't offer you success. And the protector of Shugden was tasked to grind to dust anyone leaving the gulags and following a different school. You see, that's starting to sound like cult talk, right? Like anybody who's not with the cult leader, this is what happens. And it's that typical kind of mentality of like just brainless nonsense. And this was why I actually had to call these two guys out, because the same thing I got from you know, the thing that blew my mind, the reason I actually had this conversation with both of these guys, right? And this is really important. The Nicholas Breezewood and him, I actually pointed out a lot of receipts to these guys. Yeah. I showed them receipts. I actually did a long time of researching specific links and specific things to show them that was the date, the exact date that happened. That was the name of the act, right? That was being passed by the Dalai Lama, which you said didn't happen. This was this that happened, that this didn't. You were wrong about that. There's this information that actually refutes what you said there. You can look at it. It's verifiable. Yeah. And I gave them a whole write-up with a long message. And then he said to me, I can't read your message. I won't read it because there's no paragraphs. And I was like, dude, that's a cop-out. You just don't want to read it because there's too much validating evidence in that message that you actually have to go and you know, neither of them dared to respond to a single thing that I said, but they started attacking me. And I was like, I've seen this before, right? So it's not really about what I've said. It's about I'm just making word salad. But actually, you're not going to comment on the word salad, because if it was word salad, you'd be able to say, like I did with them, I said, you said this. I ripped that a new a-hole. I said, you said this. I ripped that a new hole. You said this. I ripped that. I went through the list and I literally responded to every single comment they made. And I completely ripped it to pieces and showed how and why and where's the evidence. They couldn't do that with me. And then I pointed out the reason you can't have a conversation is because you've been brainwashed by your so-called lineage, your so-called guru lineage that you feel so sacred about. They're a bunch of weirdos. Or they're a bunch of misled people following a weirdo.
What was the demonic practice, or the practice they were saying was demonic?
Dorje Shugden.
Yeah, but what is the practice?
The practice was what I was sharing with you earlier.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I saw secretion being part of the practice.
Look, there are a lot of tantric practices that are done by many different kinds of Buddhist monks. They use tantric sex between the monks and the woman, secretions of body fluids. Urine might be used in certain contexts. They might even cut themselves. But this is a standard model amongst many of the Buddhist traditions. Though they chose to single out that one, saying that what we're doing is holy, what you're doing is evil.
Okay, well,
even though you're doing the same thing, yeah, pretty much.
So they kind of saying tantric sex is demonic in a way.
No. Tantric sex is fine.
I know it is, but are they saying that? I'm trying to get.
The Dalai Lama doesn't have a reason why it's demonic. They just said it's demonic.
Right.
There's no reasoning behind it. It's harmful to people. It's harmful to. So this guy, Breezewood, comes to me and says, I'm helping a man who's suffering because he worked with the Dorje Shugden spirits. I'm trying to help him, like shamanically, right? And I pointed out, dude, anybody that plays with the occult when they're not ready to play with the occult is going to get burnt. It's not for everyone. It doesn't matter whether it's Egyptian occult practices or Hermetic practices or yoga or Tantra or Mahakali mantras or Shiva mantras or, Vaishnava mantras. If you push your own self into an occult experience before you have been prepared morally, and probably this is what's going on, as I just said to him, if you really want to help your person, you need to go and look at their emotional state. What drew him to this practice, right? Why did he feel the need to go and do this practice? What was it that he desired? What was he looking for? For most people that dabble in the occult end up getting a little bit burnt, probably a large percentage of them, right? So
No, but this Dorje, this guy, I've known a few people that have been burnt by Dorje Shugden, so it is an evil spirit. I know for a fact because I know a few people that have been burnt. It's like, dude, I know thousands of people that have been burnt by Vedic deities, by deities all around the world. It's not just a toy. You can't play with it. There's a whole process involved of developing yourself to be ready to experience these altered states of consciousness. And if you're not ready and you try and do something that you're not prepared for, it's sort of like, it doesn't matter whether you're doing karate, kung fu, gymnastics, right? Tai Chi, or Muay Thai. If you try and do a jump spinning kick of some sort, ballet, ice skating, before you've been properly trained, you're going to fall on your ass and hurt yourself, man. Right? There's a whole process of training, man. You got to develop the ability step by step, because if you just try and do something ahead of time, you're probably going to pull a muscle, or you're going to slip, you'll fall on your butt, your head. You know, it's the same idea. But these people are so brainwashed that was the only reason he could tell me why it's demonized.
Yeah,
His own experience. And he had been told the same thing by other monks. So they have taken like, oh, this person got hurt because they tried something they shouldn't have tried, so it must be a demon. That's the whole story. This is why it's so ridiculous.
It's interesting that in the picture it looked like he was riding a dragon, and then you mentioned like being burnt, and then that deity being demonized, because dragons have been demonized. And if you face a dragon, you know, if you face this this energy, like I'm talking about spiritual alchemy, the first stage, Nigredo, like the sort of the burning away, the blackening. If you try to, I guess, try and ascend too quickly, like with arrogance, you're going to get burnt by that dragon. So the same way that this deity, whatever's been demonized, so have dragons, because I think this links to I know, a bit controversial, but this is the topic for next time, which can carry on from our topic last time about the Iron Soth and the Black Rock and the Demiurge, because the Demiurge looks a bit like a dragon, you know, head of a lion, body of a snake, you know, this false ruler and stuff. And what I kind of view that as is guardian of the threshold, and perhaps why it's been demonized is because it was created by Sophia, created by wisdom, not to entrap us, but to stop beings ascending who are not ready. And if you try to ascend through arrogance, through AI, through the artificial, you're going to get burnt. You're going to have to go back to the start to rise again from the ashes. And this is what I view the Demiurge as, is perhaps he's the guardian, and that this whole demonization of the Demiurge, you know, that this Demiurge, the creator of the false matrix, which is this reality, which I don't think is true. There's layers, and that there you could say that the likes of Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and stuff like that, the Antichrist, that is kind of the Demiurge, because they're creating a false layer of reality which will be harder for us to get out of. But if we're talking about nature and this world, it's not flawed. They want us to think it's flawed because they can't leave, they can't ascend, because they're too arrogant. And this is why they're creating this AI, this artificial, to try and find a loophole. So yeah, I'd love to get into that next time, and how this all relates to Black Rock, the Whirlpool, Yggdrasil, the three fates, the past, present, and future, like the world tree, the whirlpool, you know, this well. I'd love to get into that, but I've got to shoot off in a second. But I'm just trying to tie a common thread between this demonization of that which will burn you. Yeah, it can burn you if you're not ready, but it doesn't mean that the thing itself is bad. You know, like I think a dragon's a good example, because yeah, it will burn you if you're not ready to cross the threshold, because the dragon is there as the guardian of the threshold. But the thing is, that dragon isn't anyone external. That dragon is you. You need to face yourself to cross the threshold and to look it in the eyes. But if you have the arrogance to think that you know everything or this and that, you're going to get a rude awakening, which is to be burnt and to once again start from the ashes. That's my personal take, personal perspective, and that people demonize things they don't understand. Like Pan was demonized, you know, god of nature, fornication, you know, nymphs, fresh water. That energy has been demonized, and we're told that he's the devil, like with a pitchfork, awaiting us in hell if we're not good boys and girls. So they've managed to flip that, and it seems that there's this satanic, Ahrimanic force out there that is flipping stuff, and it tries to mirror it back to us. So like snakes are demonized, dragons are demonized, that deity's demonized, because this is energy that those people can't work with. So they don't want you working with it. They want you to work with their god, which is the artificial, which is what the Dalai Lama is working with, this AI, false god. Yeah, you can work with this because they can control that, so they can control you. But if you work with the dragon, if you become the dragon, they can't tame that. They can't tame the chaos. So anything, you know, that has this kind of anything that has the ability to burn away or wash away with fire or water, they call it chaos, demonic, because they can't control it, they can't tame it, and they want to tame us. So this is why they've demonized dragons, and this is why they've demonized the subconscious. This is why they're saying Pluto freezes over. It may be a pattern. I don't follow astrology to that level. I just look at the symbolic kind of nature, and it's the end of the soul cycle, and it represents the subconscious, and they're trying to make us fear the subconscious, because as I view it, the etheric body is our kind of dragon, is our horsepower, and that the dragon is the guardian of the threshold. And it seems that they don't want us crossing the threshold. They don't want us to open our minds, open these doors. Our subconscious mind is dormant energy, dormant potential rather, dormant, doors mind. We need our doors, all our doors wide open, so that we can be in flow, and that the emotional can flow through us. But they want us confined and constricted, and they want us either being really angry or really empathetic. Either way, we're being manipulated, like they're pulling on our strings either way, be it the anger, the fire, the outwards, or the more inner, the empathy, you know, the more watery energy. So yeah, Zeralath, it's not chaos, it's clarity and action. Well, chaos isn't a negative word, is it? It's being demonized, like anything to do with the disorder. The word disorder is being demonized because it opposes order. Negative, that's demonized. Dark, the subconscious, the underworld, anything that is hidden, not yet revealed, anything that we can tap into that's not outside of us, that's not, you know, this false light, is being demonized.
Yeah, brother, I agree. The word chaos actually comes from the word open. The word chaos, if you look at the etymology of it, the roots in ancient Greek, comes from the Proto-Indo-European language groups. And it basically relates to gape, right? To gape, to yawn, to gape, to yawn, to be wide open, and sometimes represented as grie or gre, which is also to yawn, to be wide open. So I think, like, when we think about the true meaning of what chaos means to be completely open to everything. But when you are not in chaos, you are selective. I'm not open to that. I'm not open to that. I'm not open to that. I'm only open to what I want to believe, and the rest I'm closed to. And when you open to the underworld, though, you don't have a choice, do you, Zerilat? You're just open to what everything. When you open, it's Pandora's box, man. Once you open that door, the door's open, and you got to face whatever it is you've opened the door to.
Well, can
There's
I
no
just
escaping.
say something there with Pandora's box? Because the word box relates to books. I believe that's where the word box originates from, because when with a book you open it up, and in a book is where the light is buried, like a library, light berry. And a story is a store of ori, it's a store of light. So when you're opening up a story, when you're unraveling your story, you're shining light on the situation. So that story of Pandora opening the box, letting all the bad things out, classic demonization of the feminine, opening up the chaos, like Eve taking a bite from the forbidden fruit and knowing what is good and what is evil. You name it. Hecate, Lilith, Eris, all demonized for shining light on the truth. And it's called chaos when we do that, So, yeah, it's interesting that it's called Pandora as well, which is all doors. So, and then Pan being all, like Pan being god of nature, which is all. And then Pandora, so open up all doors. Like dormant energy is all doors in our mind. Open up all doors. Yeah, it's going to seem chaos. That's because you've opened up. Things are coming through like water, like you're opening up the channels to new streams of consciousness. At first it's chaotic. Yeah, that's why we need guidance or guides. And that's not, we haven't had, that's we've been detached from guides, detached from gods. Gods have been demonized. Guides have been demonized. The elders being demonized. Now this is all to make way for this AI and this artificial, which is the new gods, the new guides. And books, we're told that's another story. We started talking about that at the beginning about books and stuff. But books and box, I mean, they open up worlds. And I think that this ties into, I'm going to say Lord of the Rings and the One Ring. The One Ring being a one frequency, one reality. That is the monoverse, or that's what they want this to be. Because this realm is like a crossing of all kinds of different energies and worlds and stuff. And we access that through our psyche, through our imagination and intuition. But they want it to be just one world. This is the one world order, opposed to the multitude of infinite possibilities, which is called the disorder.
You're completely right. When you're looking at the idea of disorder, because disorder is like going against the pyramid, right? The pyramid structure that they've made for us. And you pointed out really well earlier. I love the words that you use. You brought in the watcher upon the threshold, or the guard upon the threshold, which is really what this Dorje Shugden represents. And Ganesha is fundamentally connected to this archetypal principle and this level of consciousness that's a living stream of consciousness within us all, that is the watcher upon the threshold in the West. So that's like really well clocked. Here you can see Ganapati Ragavajra, right? So this image that I've got here is a blown up image of Ganapati Ragavajra. This is the Buddhist idea of this. And you can see here, look at him. This is not a Hindu picture. This is a Buddhist picture. I want you guys to be looking at the synchro mysticism that's being reflected here. And notice all of the gifts that are put before him. And notice here, who's this? Oh, there's Dorje Shugden. He's the one on the lion, remember, there's 4 different forms of Dorje Shugden. This is the one form where he's riding a lion. Like you said, there's different forms. There's 4 of them specifically that are well known, and they're depicted in slightly different ways. And here is another depiction of the same level of consciousness, or the same Ganapati Raghavajra is the name. And here we can see depicted with a Ganesha head with all of his weapons, right? He's got the conch, he's got the axe, he's got the sword of wisdom. Notice here, what do we see here? This is evolution. This has got to do with this has got to do with Hanuman as well. So there's a really interesting mysticism happening here. Notice what's hanging between his legs, right? The power, the potency, which is essentially, that's like the bowl of Kundalini, that power, right? That causes awakening. But he's in charge of this awakening process. So you're completely right that in your analogy of that, well spotted. And I think, like you say, this demonization is a thing that we've suffered for a long time. This is why paganism has been so attacked, right? Paganism has been so attacked by Christianity. And what we're seeing here is the Dalai Lama trying to standardize Buddhism to make it monotheistic so that he can sell it to the West as a monotheistic religion, so that he then has to attack the pagan origins of his new monotheistic version of Mahayana Buddhism. And these 2 poor sods that actually inspired me to open this discussion have been, they say initiated, I say brainwashed, right? They say they're part of a lineage, I say they're part of a cult. You say lineage, I say cult. You say initiated, I say brainwashed. And it's very sad. It's very sad because this cult mentality is the same thing we're witnessing in science, isn't it? Science has become a cult. I'm going to leave it at that. You say your last words you want to say. This is the cult of science.
Yeah, I'll just say that cult is interchangeable with cold, because the O and the U can be swapped, and we know that all the vowels can be swapped. So the O and U can be changed, and the T and D are interchangeable. So cult can become cold. And if you're in a cult, the energy is quite cold. You're cold to people who have any different perspectives to you. I quite like using the water element, so I'll just use water for streams of consciousness. All doors open. To be damned is to have blocks. That block is a door which needs to be opened. Doorways are there to be opened, channeled. So the to be damned is to stop the flow of water. And if you're really, really cold, you become like ice. Yeah. So this cult is kind of ice, which is a cube, like square, and so you have to fit in their box. If you're thinking outside of their box or getting them to stick their head out of their box, you're going to get attacked. And that's what they do. So yeah, I think I'll just I'll finish up with that. I was going to say something else. Yeah, you were sharing an image. The image you were sharing last with the 2 monkeys at the bottom. I bet you one of those monkeys is a man and not a man. One's a boy, one's a girl. Yeah, one's male, one's masculine, one's feminine. I bet you, because this image kind of reminds me of the Baphomet, another figure which is being demonized, which is the Hermetic principles symbolized. And I bet you can probably break the Hermetic principles down in this image as well. Example, the Baphomet representing as above, so below, as within, so without. All is gender, hence the boy and the girl at the bottom. The Caduceus going up the center, and he has a goat head, like Pan, like nature, like all, with a flame on top of its head, like representing wisdom. Of course, that's going to be demonized. So, you know, it's interesting for sure that I think, yeah. Well, that's one image. There is one with a boy and a girl at the bottom, but I mean, from that image, you can kind of see the blend of masculine and feminine, which isn't man and woman, it's energies, which is in all things, right? And then you have the animal head, the body of a man or woman. You know, the connection between, you know, the bridging of words. Yeah, the in between. That's not the image either. Let me try and share one. There is.
No, I was just showing how universal this is. It's even in the tarot. And that is
Right.
essentially Baphomet, the hand
Yeah.
pointing up, pointing down, the man and the woman. There's something that's quite, you actually making a really poignant observation, I think, in the connection that you're observing here, because I think there's very relevant observation. Well spotted, man. Really well spotted. This idea here is something quite interesting. Yeah, we have the sword of wisdom and the pine cone, which is the ascending of the etheric field. Yeah, we have the conch, which is the descent of vibrational field of the astral. And we have the axe. The axe is what carves down into matter. The sword of wisdom is what drives up into spirits. So we have an ascending force and a descending force. And here we have these two that seem to be, you know, locked into this central idea. And so you can see there's literally an ascending force on the right-hand side, the pine cone and the sword of wisdom, and the axe representing physical domination and carving into matter and shaping it. The way the astral energy permeates everything, and how that passion and that emotion will become a desire, and how the divine feminine has got more of that Ida energy, and how the Pingala, the sword of discrimination, is more on the right hand nadi. So you can see literally these two ideas there are sort of synchronizing to an extent quite well on a symbolic level with what you just said here. Powerfully observed, brother.
The two snakes as well on this one, the Caduceus as well.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's plenty more syncs we could do with that too. That the animal head of the Baphomet, the animal head of this with the human hands, representing well, I'm not really too sure what that represents. You know, our animal nature and our human nature, our connection to the, you know, the animal world. I don't really know what that represents. I've heard before why Baphomet has a goat head and the body of a human. But yeah, but between spirit and matter, that is your mic's muted.
I was going to point out that, like, it's such a well-established fact that you can prove it to people. Like, it's even everywhere. You know, Ganesha represents the balance between spirits and matter. That's why he's the remover of obstacles, right? And so the material and the spiritual coming together in harmony, that is the spirit of the elephant. So you were talking about the elephant there, elephant head. That's the same idea as Baphomet. It's the exact same idea.
Yeah, so with the Baphomet, well, the goat, for example, goats climb to the top of mountains, and no matter how many times they fall down, they get back up and they keep going. So that's why the goat's demonized a lot, because they don't want us climbing to the top of the mountain. And the mountain represents the mind or the psyche. They don't want us climbing or expanding. That's what climbing really represents, is expansion. And it's not expansion upwards, the mountain or the mind. the mountain is upwards, right? But expansion is about just going in and going out. So symbolically, the goat would climb to the top of the mountain. You fall down, but you keep going. That's why the goat has been demonized so heavily. With as well with dragons, I always see that the head of a dragon to me looks like a goat, especially ones that have dragons that have goatees. So there's a kind of link between the dragon and the goat and climbing mountains. Also with this elephant too, I do have to go in a sec, but with the elephant, of course, elephants have really big ears. Like they can pick up on vibrations, right? You probably know a lot about elephants living in Africa, but I can imagine they pick up on vibrations, and because they've got big ears, they're very present. And being present is the center, the spirit and the matter, the being in the central point. And I think that's perhaps what the elephant represents, present and picking up on vibrations.
I've really got to go and pee. I've been holding it for about an hour.
Yeah, man, let's wrap up.
I'm like, dude, how long can I hold this for? I don't know how long I've been holding it, but it feels like an hour. The problem with sitting here drinking water and talking, but you're completely right, man. There's this heavy, intense synchromysticism that's being uncovered here, and the Ganesha Baphomet is like fundamental. But like now I'm seeing, I haven't actually researched Dorje Shugden that intently, because I spent time with the people and I looked into the spirits. I saw the iconography, but I haven't actually so deeply been drawn to it, because for me, I keep it simple, right? I like to keep my practice simple. My guides come to me and they come in pure animal form, right? And ancestor form. And to me, that's enough. I'm satisfied with that. But it's really interesting when we started to dissect this particular symbol, because I've seen the other ones, which is the well-known ones, which I've looked at in the past, ones like this, which shows an almost connection with Durga on that lion, and yeah, it shows a very interesting relationship with Ganesh. And there are a number of other ones that I've seen.
Can I just say that looks like a curtain at the back, and the curtain representing the veil between the subconscious and conscious mind. That's the backstage. It's showing backstage there, the subconscious.
Exactly. Like this is the gateway into like a deeper. I'm gonna hold the secrets of that. You can't pass this point. I'm a protector. This is exactly what Baphomet represents, that balance. You need to be balanced between physical and spiritual before you can pass this point. If you're not balanced, I won't let you pass. That's basically the idea. But it's been an absolute blast, dear brother, and an honor as always. And I love that you made these really powerful connections. There's something in that. Well done for recognizing these very fundamental connections. Sending you big love, everybody in the chat. I hope you guys got something out of this chat. I hope I managed to give an idea of my limited knowledge of Tibetan systems, but it's all synchromysticism, right? You can see very obviously and very clearly. And the fact is that a lot of the lies that have been propagated are very obvious and trackable. The actual political lies, the other lies. So where there are those lies, you got to dig deeper. You've always got to start looking in. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, dear Shinobi. As always, love your mind, love your creativity. I hope you have a good afternoon. I'm going to enjoy my pee so much. Blessed be everybody. Om Namah Shivaya. And till next week. Oh, no, on the weekend. And maybe even tomorrow with Jeremy. Friday, I won't be here with Jeremy. Maybe tomorrow I'll speak to Jeremy. Maybe you're free tomorrow as well. Who knows?
Maybe, man.
Om Namah
great show today. Much love.
Big love to everybody. Take care.